sto planando. Quanta gente c'è al traguardo, occhi, mani, facce, tu ci sei. Se incontrassi il tuo sguardo, la volata vincerei. Ah, la montagna da scalare già là. Sono in fuga, sono in fuga, sono in fuga.
And a brief look at the prologue here. The riders making their starts, 169 of them, composing of 19 teams. I'm Phil Liggett, joined, of course, by Paul Sherwin. Well, the prologue was held in great conditions. The winner was Bradley McGee in 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Olaf Pollock putting in a surprise second place, and Jaroslav Popovic, watch out for him, in third place and off to a great start. Which takes us now to the first opening stage of the Giro d'Italia. A ride of 143 kilometres from Genoa to Alba. And the man in pink, Bradley McGee of Australia, only the second rider ever to pull on the leader's jersey for Australia in the Giro d'Italia.
Well, Brad McGee certainly was the big favourite before the start, but I think everybody now is looking forward to the first road stage. Olaf Pollock, one of the big sprinters, will be looking to try and get himself the pink jersey on the first day out on the open roads, because there is going to be a major battle for the time bonifications.
Well, defending champion Gilberto Simoni, by the way, has come to form bang on schedule because he hasn't been riding that well this year. But he seems to be now finding his legs, and he'll be wearing, of course, number one in a very strong team from Aseiko. We're looking here now at the overall situation after that prologue time trial. A good win there by McGee. And this is one of his big targets of the year. He's planning the Tour de France and at the Olympic Games as well. There's the route for us along the coast as we head now towards Alba. 143 kilometres, that's about 79 miles. Not too many challenges on the way, and a big chance now to see if Alessandro Patacchi can continue in the way he's accustomed and win the stage for the sprinters.
Ideal course for the sprinters this afternoon, and of course don't discount Mario Cipollini, who, although he's had a very quiet season so far this year, I think is also going to try and get himself a stage victory if he can. Rolling away from the start, all of the riders now on the first road stage, and there's time at 13:39 as they move away. And in the main field, Alessandro Patacchi, I would think, very nervous at this time of the day.
Yes, the cheers of the crowd. It's been a good start here in Genoa. Very good prologue time trial, not least, of course, for Brad McGee. And the riders in good spirits. 169 of them taking to the start today. A couple of small sprints along the way. There's the defending champion, Simoni. Pressure will be on him from day one, I think. This is a very, very good course this year. We're picking up the action now as a familiar sight here. The Domina Vacanti team of Fassa Bortolo and the team of Robbie McEwen's Lotto squad all beginning to mix it for the sprint.
There's Naudus there, the champion of Latvia. He's one of the men who's made the big change this year. He's looking after Mario Cipollini. Cipollini's team on the front there with a very good sense of organisation. But look at the blue and white jerseys of Fassa Bortolo trying to get the sprint sorted out for Alessandro Patacchi.
Well, Marlon Perez has been away an awful long time today, but he's back in the pack now, and the whole field are beginning to scent here. They're on 4 circuits of only 5 kilometres here in the town of Alba. Chance to see the world champion, Igor Astolo, has not done much at all this year. He switched across to Lamprey after the bad start he made earlier with Cofidis.
That was a quick glimpse there. Number 71 was Mario Cipollini, a long way back, and in fact get himself pushed back even further to around about 25th position. The organisation now in the blue and white jerseys on the front is Alessandro Patacchi's team. They seem to have got this race completely and utterly under control, and I don't think, Phil, we're going to see Cipollini in this sprint because he's much too far back.
Well, Patacchi's 4 wins under his belt already this year. He's 30 years of age now, but he really has started to blossom. 30 wins last year, that was more than anybody else, and he's trying to open his account again in the Giro d'Italia. What a difference Paul a year makes, because Domina Vacanti were the stars for Cipollini last year.
They certainly were, but this year this team has really developed into being a team who this year in the Giro d'Italia are only going to ride for stage victories because they have nobody at all who's got a chance of riding high in the overall classification. Right on the front line now, Fassa Bortolo in 5th position. There is Alessandro Petacchi. Robbie McEwen on his wheel, looking to try and see if he can get himself a stage victory. McEwen also looking for some glory at this time of the season before taking a break and getting himself ready for the Tour de France.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is a great lead out now, and there's still plenty of firepower on the front there from Fassa Bortolo. The last man on the line is Petacchi. Cipollini doesn't seem to be able to get into this at all, and we thought he might try to continue his winning ways and improve his overall record in the Giro d'Italia, which he now holds. But just look at this now, as Bortolo are really setting the pace here. This is going to be a good one now. As we look at the head of the race, they've come off that corner very wide, but there's nobody getting a look in here.
Well, there's a lot of teams actually swarming up to the front, and I can see 1 or 2 riders from Mario Cipollini's team moving forward as well there. Maybe Cipollini has recovered somewhat as they come into the last couple of kilometres, but nobody's taking the control away from Fassa Bortolo right on the front end of the main field. Dario Cioni very high up to the front end of that line. There's a big battle though. If you're just looking about 5th or 6th position, everybody is fighting to get the wheel of Alessandro Petacchi. Robbie McEwen there moving himself up now into 5th place, looking nice and calm, waiting for the sprint to open up and then hoping that he can catapult himself off the back wheel of Alessandro Petacchi.
Well, this is Testato followed by Ongarato, the familiar lead-out squad now for Alessandro Petacchi. McEwen has got the right wheel. Little bit of elbowing, bumping and barging, but McEwen has this habit of popping out at the finish. And McEwen, remember, in this race for sprint wins, because he's not going to go the distance. He never does in the Giro. He's thinking more of the upcoming Tour de France. There's now a move up on the outside.
That's Lombardi trying to move himself up towards the front. I don't think he's got Cipollini on his wheel, because Cipollini a few moments ago was around about 25th place. Still Fassa Bortolo. We're inside the ultimo kilometro now, the last kilometre. There's the world champion riding very much to the front end of the field, and there in about 5th or 6th position, the champion of Latvia, Laudzuts.
And just look at McEwen there, checks his brakes, but still goes through on the wheel of Petacchi. Robbie has put himself in a good position here. Just 3 riders from Fassa Bortolo, then followed by the riders from Domina Vacanzi. It looks though Cipollini's trying to get in there, just on the wheel too.
That's Cipollini in 5th place. He's really recovered.
On the wheel of Andres Oj. But now Cipollini still trying to get on the act here now. This is a very determined effort by Big Mario. There he is on the right of our picture. But now look at the real effort here. The big lead out coming from Andres Oj here. And that's the teammate of Cipollini, but he's taking the wrong man to the line. Look at McEwen now trying to grab a wheel. McEwen's hit the front. Here comes Petacchi on the left as we look at the picture now. Alessandro Petacchi is taking a Pollock's getting through the middle, but on the line he gets it. He opens his account on the very first full day of the Giro. Alessandro Petacchi gets the sprint there. Olaf Pollock, I think, might well have taken 2nd place. Have a look at this.
Well, let's look at this from the aerial shot. There's Robbie McEwen. He decided to go for a long one, getting the jump if he can on Alessandro Petacchi. Right on the front there, Domina Vacanzi leading out. They hope for Mario Cipollini. But look at the acceleration of McEwen there, cutting right across. I think the judges might have something to say about that as well, because McEwen goes right across the road there, opening up the gate, though, for Alessandro Petacchi in the blue and white. And once this man kicks the turbo in, he is absolutely phenomenal. Look at the way Polak has squeezed through that gap there. 2nd across the line. Now, Phil, that is going to put Olaf Polak very close to the pink jersey.
It'll certainly give him the points lead, because he's got 2 second places now. So he can look forward to wearing the points if he hasn't got the pink. There are small bonuses as they cross the line, and in fact Crescenzo D'Amore has popped into 3rd place there, pushing Robbie McEwen out into only 4th. He faded pretty quickly at the line, didn't he? Look at the face there of Petacchi. He's going to feel pretty pleased with himself. Win number 1 this year's at Giro d'Italia, and in fact win number 5 for the season.
Well, that was a great ride there by Alessandro Petacchi. As we look down, there's confirmation just ahead of Polak and D'Amore. Robbie McEwen fading a little bit towards the end into 4th place, and Marco Zanotti moving up into 5th. Watch out for Philippe Gilbert, the Belgian rider off the F2Jeux.com team, because he's got a very good chance of finishing in the top 3 over the next couple of days.
Speaking big things about Philippe Gilbert back home in Belgium, but there's the flowers for the top sprinter of the moment, with 30 wins to his credit last year. He's already on the board here in the Giro d'Italia. Overall, Paul, you are right. Polak has taken the lead by 2 seconds over Bradley McGee, 20 seconds over Petacchi. Popovic, the big danger, I think, amongst that leaderboard at the moment. So Olaf Polak of Gerolsteiner has given Germany the lead in the Giro d'Italia.
Well, it's going to be a big battle again, I should think, tomorrow, because the sprinters do have a very good chance of staying in at the front end of the race. Although I have a feeling there are one or two little climbs out on tomorrow's course, which are going to make it that very much more difficult.
Well, this one takes the riders now from Novi Ligure to Pontremoli. It's an uphill finish, by the way, at Pontremoli. 184 kilometres, that's around about 114 miles. 1/3 and 1/2 category climb along the way. The Intergiro sprint as well, that most complicated of competitions, for its own jersey. And as we're coming up here now to the top of the Passo del Bocco, a little bit of a break on. I'm sorry. Oh, this is the Passo del Bretello. So this puts us now at 20 kilometres from the finish here.
As you can see, it's been a pretty hard day. A lot of riders have been left struggling to try and stay in contact with the main field. And in fact, one or two riders who've been left behind here are riders, in fact, like Alessandro Petacchi and Mario Cipollini. I think it was Alexander Moose who went across there in first place, just ahead of Damiano Cunego and Gilberto Simoni. By the way, Cunego, a lot of people feel has got a very good chance of riding high in the overall classification in this race. He comes into this event with 5 victories in the last month of racing.
That's right, and he comes in now not quite the youngest rider in the race. He was the youngest rider last year when he tasted the Giro for the first time, and he finished on the winning team from Seiko. Well, they've swept up all the breakaways now, and this is a big, there's been plenty of them today, but it looks as though they're taming the situation because they know the climb up to the finish of Pontremoli. Not a mountain by standards, but a tough climb nonetheless. A little bit of cramp being shaken out the legs there, that rider there from Alessio.
Well, Brad McGee's got a very good chance of getting himself back the pink jersey this afternoon because, in fact, the overnight leader, Olaf Polak, is a long way behind in this race, as are the majority of all of the other sprinters. Big organisation on the front for Team Saeco, and as you can see, Panaria also on the front there feel they've got a very good chance of getting the win. Moving up on the right-hand side is the world champion, Igor Astroloa, just moving teams away from Cofidis now to ride for Lampre. He too will be trying to get himself a win if he can, just to bolster his chances and, of course, to try and show off his world champion's jersey.
Well, Astroloa with his wins last year, 1 classic and 1 world title, wasn't bad for a couple of wins, was it? But he's had a sorry start to the season, joining Cofidis. The drug scandal has hit them there. He was allowed to move on, and he's now gone over to Lampre. Nice to see him at the front of the action. 2 kilometres to go, not far away from the climb now, up towards the finishing line. And interestingly, Paul, it is Seiko, and here they are at the front of the race, and they've scored well in the mountains today as well.
Watch out though for Bradley McGee just on the left-hand side there. He'll be looking to try and get himself a time bonus to make himself that little bit more solid at the top end of the overall classification. I don't suppose he expected at all he was going to have a crack at getting his pink jersey back here this afternoon.
Well, he might need a small time bonus if he does. He's 2 seconds off, remember, at the moment, but I haven't seen Pollock in that little group.
Pollock has had a hard time over these little undulations on the run in towards the finish. We're inside now the last kilometre, but the team who've got complete control at the front end is Team Saeco, and I would expect today that they will try and set this up for Damiano Cunego, because coming into the Giro d'Italia, he really was on fire.
Well, if Cunego does challenge, who's going to lead the Saeco team? Of course, over 3 weeks, we're going to find out the answers to those questions. Well, working very hard here. Looks like Gilbert again is just on the front there of Brad McGee. So the FDJ boys have got a great interest in this result.
Well, you can see Gilbert there. He's on the front. He's taken the lead now. In fact, he's not thinking about his own position here this afternoon. It's more about the position of Brad McGee. McGee wants to get back the pink jersey, but he's going to have to fight off Cunego there, who's in 4th place.
Yes, a very tight bend, this one. Well, this is a great lead out by Gilbert. And Bradley McGee, having won the prologue and taken pink, will put himself back into the jersey here. Looking down the quick pan of the peloton, I don't see the Maglia Rosa worn today by Olaf Pollock at all. He's had a tough day out in it. But look at this now, McGee leading out the 2 Seiko riders. That doesn't all well for the result. He does need the time bonus. And as he comes over the top of the line here now, McGee is riding like a champion just now. He's being challenged though by Damiano Cunego, and it looks like Mereni. And Cunego, the young man on the team, has stolen the stage ahead of Bradley McGee. But that should be enough for McGee to go back in pink.
That should be enough, but there's the winner of the stage. This man getting his first ever stage victory at the Giro d'Italia. What a great win by Team Seiko. Now this team will now feel that little bit more relieved. They've got the victory they were looking for, and now they can think about the win of Gilberto Simoni. A very quick glimpse there of the next group on the road. Alessandro Petacca in that group, as you can see there, the leader of the Ciclamina competition, and as well Robbie McEwen. So the majority of the sprinters here losing a large amount of time this afternoon.
Well, the main base of the leaders are here, and they have lost an enormous amount of time, really. There won't be no return to the top like there has been for McGee, because Pollock now is losing too much time here, and these are the Fassa-Bortolo riders. They'll be in action again as time goes on. There's Pollock as well. The early leader in the King of the Mountains will be Fabian Weckmann. So it's not all doom and gloom for Gerald Steiner as the peloton arrive here. No big effort at all. 2 minutes and 39 seconds behind.
Well, let's not forget, for Gerald Steiner, they are counting on David Rebellin, who is very comfortably in that leading group. But that's had a very serious sort out on the second day on the open road. But look at this. At this moment, I actually thought that Brad McGee had done just enough to get himself the win. But look at the acceleration coming by here from Damiano Cunego. And don't forget, that little man on the right, on the left-hand side there in the red jersey, has been a former world champion himself at the under-23 level of the sport. And Igor Astroloa, the current world professional champion, coming up to show that he is riding himself into form here at the Giro.
And there he is, nearest camber, nearly 40 kilometres an hour, just off 25 miles an hour. The wind going to Damiano Cunego. McGee, Astroloa, Mazzolini it was in fifth, Trampush, Rebellin. The man they've missed out there is in fact the third place rider, which was Mareni, as he made that third place finish. Well, this is the moment everybody waits for, and for some reason in the Giro d'Italia they never can open the champagne. But here we are, Damiano Cunego's great year continues. 32 seconds of the overall lead now. It swings back to Brad McGee of Australia. Popovic up into second and Trampush in third. Cunego has come right in now.
Those really are large gaps at the top end of the overall classification, but with a taste of the mountains to come tomorrow, I wonder if Brad McGee really thinks he can hold on to that pink jersey. 32 seconds ahead of Jaroslav Popovic, and Trampush, well, I think he may well disappear as well from the top 10.
All right, well, let's move on then to stage 3 now. We go on to the Corno alla Scala, and that's, by the way, is where Alberto Tomba, the famous downhill ski champion from Italy, learned to ski. We're scaling the heights now as we move on. 191 kilometres, about 120 miles from Pontremoli to the highest point in the Bologna Apennines. There's a little preview for you. Snow on the mountains of winter, and Tomba was the man that brought fame to the Corno alla Scala. Well, today we've got a couple of climbs too, and on the way we can expect that perhaps Seiko will try to take a little bit of control. It's going to be a tough day for Brad McGee, that's for sure.
Very difficult day for Brad McGee, who's I think very surprised to get himself back into the pink jersey after conquering the opening day's prologue, which he expected to win, and everyone put him down as a #1 favourite. He's also looking forward to go through to the Tour de France, and he's putting himself, I think, Phil, down to a very, very difficult season, because he wants to go for the Tour of Italy, which he's already succeeded at, the Tour de France, and of course the Olympic Games.
We're looking here at the early move of the day from Tenax, Renzo Mazzolini, who's been riding pretty well. He got away after about 38 kilometres today, and they've more or less left him out there for a while. 84th overall, 4 minutes 3 seconds behind. So he's not a big worry just yet. Just remind you, the leaders just now, apart from the pink for McGee, we've got Cunego wearing the points. Alexander Moos has got the King of the Mountains back off Weckmann, and Marzoli is the Intergiro leader.
Well, Marzoli there at the moment had built himself up a maximum lead of 16 minutes. Mazzolini, I meant to say.
That's right, he's the younger brother of the Eddie Mazzolini, or Renzo.
Well, he had built himself up that massive advantage, but I think the writing is certainly on the wall, because at the front end of the main field there's been a lot of red jerseys from Team Seiko. They must feel very confident here this afternoon that either Gilberto Simoni or, of course, Damiano Cunego have got a very good chance of taking over the pink jersey, because they're the men who are coming into this race on exceptionally good form. And I think we can see at the side of the road there's some very interesting artistry going on.
The peloton continuing here. No big pressure. That's a fantastic piece of work, I have to say. It's taken a long time to do that. Now the Seiko boys clearly have got ambition here today now, I wonder if they can move Cunego right up the ladder here and give him the pink jersey. They're starting to pull back, Mazzolini.
Well, this is a bit tough because the man on the front is also Mazzolini, but that's Eddie, and he's having to chase down his own brother. But the problem here is, in fact, team orders are saying that they've got to try and pull this all back before the end of the day, and I've got a feeling that maybe Damiano Cunego is trying to think about 2 wins back-to-back, because I've got a feeling that this young man can stay in the group, which will certainly splinter on the last few kilometres up towards the summit, and he's certainly got the acceleration to get himself a second win at the Giro.
Well, looking now at the leader heading into Gaba, 16 minutes was his biggest advantage, so he had his head. He got the Intergiro sprint at Formazzi di Borgna. He also went over the top of the Carpinelli, well clear of the field. Weckman went over the top in second place there, 10 minutes behind, doing a battle with Alexander Moos in the King of the Mountains. So we could see a swing back to Weckman in the leader's jersey in the King of the Mountains, which is green, by the way, in the Giro d'Italia.
Stefano Garzelli down there also looking pretty comfortable. He's also
much from him at all yet, have we?
He's also a rider, I think, who's looking to ride himself into form here at the Giro. But you can see the dedication of Team Seiko on the front there. They know that they've got a very good chance of getting themselves the pink jersey here this afternoon. And of course, another stage victory after the one that opened up their account with Damiano Cunego. This is a beautiful part of the world we're going through here, through the Bologna Apennines. Not all that difficult, but I do think we'll have a serious sorting out over the last 10 kilometres. And Renzo Mazzolini, I think that tells it all. It's been a very long, hard chase, but he knows that over the last few kilometres, that main field is really going to turn up the notches.
Well, he has been away for 135 kilometres, and it looks like he's agreed now. It's curtains for him. Remember, the big climb is just ahead, which will take us up to the line. And there's an awful lot of riders here now feeling they're in with a chance. Just 50 seconds. For him. We just heard, by the way, the first retirement of the Giro d'Italia. Jurgen van der Velde from the Chocolat Jacques team from Belgium becomes the first man out of the Tour.
So there's Mazzolini being chased by a Mazzolini, because Eddie Mazzolini is still on the front end of the main field. The race referee just sitting out of the car there, trying to see how quickly the main field is coming back. And as soon as he sees that gap go to around about the 30-second mark, he will move all of the cars and the motorbikes out of the gap. Pulling back there is always an indication that there is the main field. And I would say, Phil, that is not very much more than 30 seconds now.
No, that's about right. And as you can see now, the road's starting to kick up a little bit here as we get on the lower slopes of the climb up to the finish. Not an easy end to today's stage at all. It's been a long way too, at 120 miles as we head up towards the highest point in the Apennines here in Bologna. And there's the main field. And now we'll know how the strong men are feeling today as they start to come through, because they're going to want to make an impression today. There will be timed gaps at the finish, there's no doubt about that. Here's the catch, more or less bye-bye. Been a good break though. He went out at 38. He's been caught with around about 19 kilometres to go, something like that.
I think he's saying ciao mama, because he knows the writing's on the wall, because there is the main field, and it's interesting to see that it is very red on the front of that peloton, and that is Team Seiko. This is where we're heading to now over the final few kilometres as we start to tilt up towards the skies, and the finish line there at Corno alla Scala, a very difficult climb, but not that steep in gradient. It's really made that little bit more difficult by the fact that it's a long climb up to the finish. There's the catch, and look how dedicated Team Seiko are, and almost the whole of the team is on the front end of the peloton.
Yeah, you're right. Pataki doesn't seem to be too prominent right now. Well, Seiko here, they are the champions from last year's Giro d'Italia. Let's see what they can do this time around.
Castellano, the organiser of the Giro, just out of the top of the car there. There's the catch. Slipping back through the main field, the one or two riders will say well done, and all he's got to try and do now is survive and make sure that he can stay in the main field up towards the finish. But that field now, Phil, I think is really starting to be put under pressure. There's Gilberto Simoni, surrounded by his men, looking very comfortable here as they start to set themselves up for what could be an early assault by Gilberto Simoni on the pink jersey.
And there's Cunego too, wearing that Ciclamino points leader's jersey at the moment. He looks very, very strong. Riding last man of the team, that could be an indicator that they're trying to get him up to the top first. But they're taking control of this. Garzelli's team also trying to make an impression. I really do feel that Garzelli is going to have to show us something today to prove that he's in this race big time this year.
Also riding near the front there in the pale blue jersey of Gerolsteiner was David Rebellin. He too, well, look at that. Over the last 2 or 3 kilometres, the numbers have been dramatically reduced in that main field. And I wouldn't think Alessandro Petacchi or Mario Cipollini are going to be there.
Well, that looks like a pretty strong move here. just starting to go clear. This looks like the long fifth. Not, I thought it was Charlie Wegelius for a moment, but it isn't. It's his teammate, the Colpack teammate, Leonardo Giordani, I think it is, trying to go clear.
Well, Giordani, a former world champion a couple of years ago. That was at the under-23 level, and that was when the event was in Verona, where the World Championships are going to be this year. In fact, somebody's leapt out of the pack behind him as well. So 2 riders on the attack, not at all ruffling the feathers, Phil, of Team Seiko, who look completely and utterly in control here. They're not going to be worried about this. They don't want to panic, because these are the early attacks that I don't really think are going to go too far off the front.
Nice to see that Loda there, Nicola Loda, who was a teammate of Mazzolini, now back in the pack, and I think has just been tailed off the back of that pack, is trying to finish off what his teammate started. He's gone up there to join Giordani.
Well, they've only got about 15 seconds advantage over the front end of the main field. But, you know, Team Seiko, I think today, are the team that are going to try and blow this race apart. It's a little bit of a difficult thing, because Gilberto Simoni wants to win the Giro d'Italia again, but he has to make sure that he doesn't do it too early on. There's Julio Perez there. Now, that's a bit strange to see him riding at the back.
It is.
Because I thought he was a man who's also got a very good chance of getting a stage win up here at the mountaintop.
His life at the back here, and it looked a little bit like Robin McEwen there, was sitting up and pedalling up the climb to the finish. His job done for the day. As we continue the pressure here from Leonardo Giordani, and in fact the former under-23 world champion has got rid of Loda by the look of it, and he's going for it now. It's everything or nothing, because the pack are not that far behind, but he is making progress, and that is Loda in the distance, so he's dropped him.
Well, he's opened up a slight gap, but it's going to be very difficult, I think, for somebody like Giordani to ride off the front and break the stranglehold. In fact, as they come round that corner, there is the main field just breathing down his neck. Not at all any panic on board Team Seiko, who seem to be the big armada. The difficult thing about trying to win the race like the Giro d'Italia, though, is using too much energy too early on. That's the damage that's being done at the back end of the main field. Riders are now very rapidly starting to get tailed off. And I thought I saw Stefano Garzelli there, but I can't believe that he's in difficulty.
This is Thomas Vaitkus here, Lithuanian rider, pretty good track rider. He'll be part of the Lithuanian track team too for the upcoming Olympic Games. And just like Brad McGee, who's doing similar, he's got 3 targets this year. As I said earlier, he's got the Tour de France to come in July, and then he wants to go for the World Pursuit Championship and Team Pursuit at the Olympic Games. That's a tough call, I think, but he's off to a great start in the first ambition. As we now see here, the gentle pace making by the peloton. They're just stamping up this climb. We're still quite a few kilometres from the summit, and this is a counter move now. And see what we can have. Formaggio, Piave trying to get away here. Now it's just 107 is Giuseppe Miraglia.
Well, these are all just little flurries of attack as he's taken over Giordani, moved himself off into the lead. But the big pressure at the front end of the main field, because this is the first real showdown of the men who want to win the Giro d'Italia. This is not where the race is going to be won this afternoon, but it certainly is a place where we'll see which of the strong men are already in form before we go to the big mountains once we get up to the top of the peninsula and go right across the top of Italy and through the Dolomites.
And still Seiko getting control of what is a rapidly dwindling peloton here.
Brad McGee is still very much to the front now. That's quite a surprise, because McGee is not really one of the best climbers in the world, but this group, you can see, has been reduced to around about 50 riders, so that's an indication that Brad McGee is not going to give up that pink jersey quite so easily. Let's not forget, at the start of the day he held on to an advantage of 32 seconds, and that might well be enough to stay in pink for one more day.
11 kilometres to go, a little less than 7 miles. That's an awful long way. That sharp hairpin left there heralds really the start of the climb now. It's unforgiving all of the way to the top. And Miraglia is the first man to feel the pain of this climb, but the tempo being set by Seiko, they clearly have a plan. Now, whether it's for Simoni or Cunego, we're yet to find out. But Brad McGee was riding best of the rest there, sitting on the back wheel of the boys in red. I don't think Brad's got the ambition of leading this tour all the way, because he's very suspect in the mountains, but he's going to test himself today, that's for sure.
Well, he's never really performed exceptionally in the mountains, but over the last 12 months he's actually lost a little bit of weight, around about 2 or 3 kilos, and he claims to have actually brought from Australia to Europe a dietitian to look after his diet, because he's had lots of peaks and troughs in his career throughout the year, and he believes that the reason for that is because of his diet, and he's actually very much monitored his diet and his intake intake over the last few months, and he's trying to make himself a slightly more consistent bike rider, but it's always very difficult trying to make somebody into a climber. There's Igor Astroloa on the far side. He's not enjoying this climb at all, and he too is starting to lose a little bit of pace off what is becoming now, Phil, a very select group of riders.
Yes, Astroloa showing his World Championship bands off there as the cars move over the top. It's never a great feeling, that. Looks like Rafael Liliano here has also dropped back into the pack from Sella Italia. And there's Julio Perez, not climbing like the king of the mountains he was in this race, is he?
No, he certainly is not on form at all here in the Giro at the start, but that's very often the case. Let's not forget, this is the first week of racing. This is the first big mountain the riders will have to taste, and very often it catches a lot of riders out. But one team has not been caught out here at all, is Team Saeco, who are still on the front end of that group, and again reducing the numbers in this group, which is now turning out to be really the heads of state of the Giro d'Italia in the first few days of racing.
That's right, 4 days in, the first big challenge today, which will give us the indicator as to who are going to start making a real challenge when we get down to the tough tail of this race this year. Hard climbs in the Dolomites still to come. All the cheers still going here on the climb for the one rider at the front, Maraglia. Now you can see how this climb begins to bite. Now we've left the town below us as we continue to go up the mountain, right to the summit, highest point in the Bologna Apennines, remember. 10 kilometers still to climb, and Maraglia is setting the pace.
Well, the signs all over the road there, Forza Simone, so I think we got an idea just exactly who they're cheering on there, Vai GB. And that is also for the man who is in around about third or fourth position in that line of red-clad riders there. Gilberto Simoni has got all of his riders on the front end of the main field. In fourth position on Simone's wheel, though, is Damiano Cunego, who's got a very good chance of getting himself a crack at the pink because he's ahead of Simone in the overall classification at the start of today.
Last man on this group, and looking as though he won't be there much longer, is Gianni Farizin, the Italian on Gerald Steiner, the German team. It's a very good team this year. It's having a great season. The likes of David Rebellin and Olaf Pollock is certainly keeping them flying their colours high at the moment. I was going to say the pavement artists have been at work, but it's more like the field artists at the moment. Very good wine, Lambrusco.
Looking down here, Gilberto Simoni now I think is probably thinking about stamping his authority on the front end of this team, because he may well be a little bit worried about the performances of his teammate Damiano Cunego over the last couple of months, because in basically the last 10 days of racing, Cunego has himself 6 victories, including one stage here at the Giro d'Italia. Maraglia still holding on to a very slim advantage and not really looking like a man who's going to cause a great surprise. That's around about 5 seconds over the front end of the main field, which is very much dominated by Saeco. The man who's been doing an awful lot of the work there was Eddie Mazzolini, but they still have a very solid squad there. Perez seems to have recovered because he's moving up into around about 10th position. So he now is thinking about a crack at a mountaintop finish if he can.
He's a little look at life of the boys who are surviving, but only just at the moment at the back of the race. Geert Verheyen, Chocolat Jacques. They've lost one man today in Jurgen van der Walle.
That's Gianni Farizin as well, just in front of him, looking to be very much on the rivet, trying to stay in contact with this group. As we get closer to the summit, though, that group is going to start to splinter, and we get a chance to see if anybody's showing any signs of weakness. Number 42 down there, by the way, is a little Colombian rider on the Chocolat Jacques team. That's Mauricio Ardila. And he, according to some of the riders on the squad, is a very good climber, and he's a man we need to keep a very close watch on.
So the field continues and the kilometres slowly tick off. This rider's tried to stay around. I don't know his gears there, Paul. It looks as though he might have a 25 back sprocket on this bike just now. But Maraglia, forget the advantage of 10 seconds. They're right there and they're pulling him back. And now are we going to see a counter-attack, or will they continue? Just to keep the tempo going nicely here. Those who can stay can stay. 8 kilometres to climb and they're all together.
Still Saeco. There's Gilberto Simoni in third position. Fourth position there is Damiano Cunego. There's Eddie Mazzolini. As we get a Gruppo Compacto. This is Gianni Farizin. He's at the back end of the group trying to stay in contact as we look further forward there. And he certainly isn't doing that. There's Vladimiro Belli just on the far side in the blue and pink jersey of Panaria. There is Popovic. Now he's also got a very good chance of getting himself into the pink jersey here this afternoon, and he's a great favourite for a lot of people to actually take out the overall win, because he's done so well over the last couple of seasons at the Giro d'Italia that one day or another I do feel certain he's going to win it.
I'm just looking at Cunego there. He'll be happy in this region because he won the Tour of the Apennines in April, it's last month. There he is. Interesting character, isn't he? Such a small, dapper little lad. Looks as though he's up for the fight as well, wearing the Ciclamino jersey as points leader currently.
David Rebellin just coming up on the left-hand side there in the pale blue jersey. Cauchioli. There's Eddie Mazzolini with the dark hair and the dark glasses there, as you get a chance to see what it's like at the back end of the main field. A lot of these riders really just struggling to try and stay in contact. Sosenka on the back.
There's Garzelli too. Garzelli looking as though he might be in a position today. He knows the men to mark. It's the balding man in the yellow jersey as he sits there on the tail of Seiko. This is a very quick pace now, because these boys have slipped it onto the top chain ring here. This is superb pacemaking here by Tonti. He's the newcomer here for Seiko in the Giro, and he was the pacemaker yesterday as well when they got a good result with Cunego. He's doing the same now, and maybe it'll be same again at the finish. Cunego is certainly itching to have a go.
I tell you what, Seiko are dishing out some serious pain here as we go through 7 kilometres to go. That's Sylvester Smith in second position. But these guys really are turning up the screws here. Mazzolini, you see, now has moved up into third place. He's getting ready to take over. I think they're going to just try and eliminate as many riders as possible. And they've done a marvellous job over the last 25 kilometres, because, as you can see, they've really reduced that main field down to around about 45 men. And they still are trying to set the win up there this afternoon, I would say, for Gilberto Simoni, who I think has to stamp his authority on the team to say, OK, guys, Cunego's been pretty good leading up to the Giro, but don't forget I'm the boss.
Well, that's the way it goes when you're the big man on the team. We're heading up to top out at just on 5,000 feet at the finishing line. We're just over 6 kilometres away now. Under the regulations, helmets can now come off as the climb is more than 5 kilometres long and it takes you directly to the line. That's what the rule says.
That's Muraglia just getting rid of his helmet, still staying in contact with this group, who are being led completely and utterly here by a team that has only come to the Giro d'Italia for one thing, and that's to win the race with Gilberto Simoni. They don't really have any sprinters on board, although they've had some success already with Damiano Cunego. But look at the speed they are ripping up this mountain. Queuing up though behind Simoni, you can see Stefano Garzelli. I'm not sure what his form is like right now, because he's had a fairly quiet start to the season. He's just started to ride himself into form a month before the Tour. And now he will also be hoping that he can stay on the wheel of Gilberto Simoni, as we once again get a glimpse at the back end of the pack with 6 kilometres to go. You know, Seiko are not asking anybody for any help at all here. They just want to rip this place to pieces.
I tell you what, they're actually climbing here in the region of 14 to 15 miles an hour, which is an incredibly fast speed. And that's what's causing these riders to string out. And that peloton has been shrinking by the kilometre. And it's all under the impetus here of the riders in red. Fantastic pacemaking by them, with Mazzolini now stretching them out again. But the two important men, Simoni and Cunego, for me, are waiting to pounce. And Garzelli knows it because he's right there. But most impressive for a so-called non-climber is Brad McGee.
Well, Brad McGee still there, so is Philippe Gilbert as well. I caught a glimpse of him just a few moments ago. He's doing a very good job, and in fact the other rider in there for FDJ.com is Nicolas Fritsch. He's in fact just disappearing off the back of the group. Now you can see a lot of riders moving forward. They're starting to feel the itch and the power go out of the pacemaking of Team Seiko. Moving up there, you can see the big, huge Ukrainian rider there from the team of Donadi.
I'm just looking at the field here now. I think that Tonti has just about stretched himself to the limit now. That's why they've closed up, because in fact Tonti's running out of steam, and it looks like one of the Seiko riders has just run out of steam now. The pace is beginning to tell here. We're looking at Nicolas Fritsch from the FDJ.com team. He's also on his way backward under the pressure. This is why we're heading up towards 5 kilometres to go. If there's anybody with the strength to attack, they won't leave it much longer to completely shatter this leading group.
There's Gonchar just moving up. He's the Ukrainian national champion. Stefano Garzelli actually seems to be riding fairly comfortably there on the wheel of Gilberto Simoni. And if this is a group sprint towards the top of this climb, Garzelli's got a fairly good chance of taking it out, because he's got a very good acceleration at the top of mountains like this, and he will have fairly good morale because he got himself a stage victory just about 2 weeks ago in the Tour of Romandy. Cunego is still riding very close to the front end of the main field as well.
New pacemaker now is Leonardo Bertagnoli for Seiko. The other pacemakers have suddenly decided enough was enough. They've done their job well, and they will just ride into the finish now, living to fight another day, today being tomorrow, of course, on this 3-week race. Just looking down there to see if I can see Brad McGee. We saw him earlier. He was pretty close to the leaders. He seems to have lost a little bit of ground on the climb. Could well be losing the jersey too, because it's only half a minute and a lot of riders can challenge for it.
Well, that could also mean that the bonuses are going to be very important, because if Brad McGee doesn't stay in this group, the overall lead could either go to Jaroslav Popovic or Damiano Cunego, because Cunego is still very much there.
Oh well, anything goes on the mountain as we wait now for the leaders. Here they come. It's all Seiko. Just 3 days of the Giro really out on the highway, they've become the team to beat. They've set themselves up as that manner anyway. The field is now thinning out rather dramatically at the back of the race there. It was good to see that Marzio Bruscagin of Fassa Bortolo was surviving in here. He's an amazing bike rider.
Well, he's one of those bike riders who is always there, promising to come up with a big performance one day or another, but he's never actually managed to get himself the big win. There's David Revelin with the bleached blonde hair on the inside of the corner there. He too is in great form this season and may well be looking for a very good Giro d'Italia. After all, he's dominated the World Cup since the start of the season.
Yes, he's established himself in that for sure. And
There's
here's
McGee.
Brad McGee. There he is. Now he's in trouble here. And he's desperately trying to hang on, but this has been a huge effort by Bradley McGee, and he's a great fighter. He started well, he marked well, he couldn't hold the pacemaking though of Tonti, and he's still more or less just in contention here. Now every time this road eases slightly, McGee is going to pedal back in.
Marlon Perez was the rider from Colombia Cell Italia just behind him. Now he mustn't panic at this point here at all, Brad McGee, because he's got a very good chance of riding himself back into his rhythm, but he's never really been a great mountain climber. He's a man who's come from a very big pedigree on the track, trying to prove that he can be a good road rider, as many of the big pursuit riders of the past have been able to do. But once they get to the big high mountains, that's where they find the limit. Now there is a rather interesting hairdo for our man Pavel Tonkov, a former winner of the Giro d'Italia, and I think a very relaxed, another of those strange riders who keeps announcing his retirement but then adding another 12 months to his career.
He's always loved this race. He won it in 1996, one of only 2 Russian winners. Evgeny Bertsin was the first. Well, you've got to take your hat off to this man. Just watch how he suffers. He will not relinquish his position without a real fight here, Brad McGee. Terrific riding, losing a bit through the trees as we're getting up high into the woods now. And still the work being done here. And Tonti has got himself back on the front there, but this is an attack now.
Good move by Phonak, trying to put themselves off the front end of this group. And this is a very solid move coming off here by Marco Fettonani.
Yes, it is too. And you might tell me who he is, Paul, because I've never heard of him. But there he is, Marco Fettonani. He's done well to get off because of the pace they were doing. Now this could start the reaction that perhaps Seiko have been waiting for now, because he's taken the pressure off them. Now it's up to them, and here comes the drive again to put him right back in the pack.
Well, this is something that Brad McGee is not going to enjoy either. These accelerations, I think, will announce the departure of Bradley McGee from this group, because McGee, I think, was able to stay in the group while they were riding at one steady, consistent pace. But these consistent accelerations that the climbers can produce are not good for a man who rides on a nice rhythm of his own. So there is Brad McGee. I think there was a gap there.
There is a gap.
So it looks as if it's going to be a change in the overall classification. And if we were to stop the race right now, it would go to Jaroslav Popovic. But look at this, Cunego. He's riding the position, I think here, Phil, as team defender. He's gone away there with Eddie Mazzolini, who's gone right across that gap. But this will put pressure on the others and will put pressure on riders like Popovic if they want to get themselves into the pink jersey this evening.
It's a perfect situation here because, well, I was about to say they could ease a couple of riders away, but in fact it's been shut down and we're all back together, and Eddie is back in the driving seat at 3 kilometres to go. all uphill, remember, and this could sort of, and this looks like a move here from Cunego and Mazzolini. Well, hardly had they been clear, and they pushed on, and Cunego is sensing a win, and now Mazzolini has eased them back.
Well, this is a bit of a surprise because I thought the day was for Gilberto Simoni, but this could be the birth of a brand new star of Italian cycling. Damiano Cunego has gone off the front, and it's going to mean that everybody else has got to chase, and it's Popovic in person who is now trying to nail back the gap to this man here. Look at this, he looked over his shoulders. Watch this acceleration. He's surrounded by his own teammates, and the way this young kid dances on the pedals is absolutely phenomenal. Not only can he climb, but he can sprint as well.
Look at the size of his thighs here for the shape of his body. He's a small rider, 22 years of age, and Gilberto Simoni, well, this is a gamble because it looks like he's trying to go after Cunego, his own teammate, and he is, and Popovic isn't looking so good down there just now. Once you start looking at the ground, it usually means you're under pressure, and the gap has opened, and now we have one terrific Seiko tandem.
Well, I don't think it's going to be a tandem for very much longer because, in fact, there was a gap there immediately. Gilberto Simoni got out of the saddle. He put time between himself and his own teammate, Damiano Cunego. But look at this. What they're doing is putting a lot of the other contenders under serious pressure on the first mountain of this year's Giro d'Italia. And one man struggling to stay in contact there is Stefano Garzelli. The man doing the pacemaking, though, is Popovic. He obviously feels he's got a very good chance, but look at the way Simoni dances all over those pedals. It just makes this mountain look so easy.
He's riding a pretty low gear too. There is Garzelli. Piccoli also here, just peeping in and out. On the left of the picture is Andrea Noe. Noe loves the Giro d'Italia, hardly rides well anywhere else, but he always rides well in this race. And he's there again. Now, Gilberto Simoni here, heading up to the highest finisher of the Tour so far on the Corno al Scala.
Well, he's around about 12 seconds behind his own teammate Damiano Cunego in the overall classification at the start of the day. That was David Rebellin as well, who was going off the back of the group. He's struggling to stay in contention. Cunego now, I think, is just going to have to sit up and wait for the rest of the group and just sit there with his own teammates while they allow Gilberto Simoni to be chased by all the other big names. But this really is throwing down the gauntlet on only day 3 on the open road.
Last year's champion looking now to what could be an early lead in the Giro. There is Cunego. Looks as though he's under pressure, but not out of it by any means. The crowd just cottoning on that this is Gilberto Simoni here. And he's choosing today to make an early impression on the Giro d'Italia. A little bit too early? Well, we won't know yet, will we?
I don't think he can ride himself into the pink jersey here this afternoon because he started 47 seconds behind Bradley McGee and around about 15 seconds behind these two riders here. Popovic, who is in second place in the overall classification, and of course Damiano Cunego. On the far side there, Giuliano Figueras, he too is starting to look fairly confident. And this is a rider just in the blue and white jersey there who I'm a bit surprised to still see in contact. That was Dario Cioni.
Cioni's ridden a good race so far. Ex-mountain biker, speaks fluent English because he was born in Great Britain, but he's very much Italian. Looking down now at the leading riders again. That's Noe. They're hanging on now to Cunego's wheel. Pelazzotti, I think, was also getting across to him. Popovic, 12th and 3rd in his last 2 tours, is a man for the Giro, and he said he wants to win this year, and he's going to have to do something now to limit his losses because the biggest, most important rider in the Tour, last year's champion Simoni, is going clear. Now, Paul, you said he may not get pink. Well, he's pulling time, big time, out of Brad McGee, so his main rivals for pink jersey now could be his own teammate here, Cunego.
Well, he's got 15 seconds deficit on Cunego at the start of the day, and of course about the same on Popovic. Look at the position here of Stefano Garzelli. He really is suffering, and there is the 15-second advantage. So I may well be completely wrong. He could be riding himself into the pink jersey.
It's not often on television you get some idea of just how steep the climb is. It's very difficult to portray, but I think that shot of Garzelli gave you some idea how this road does kick up. It's going to be a real tough ascent now, and they're losing ground steadily here.
Cunego, though, is still looking very comfortable. He's just sitting there. He's allowing the other riders to do the pacemaking. And although he was in a spot of bother when he was caught by his team leader, Gilberto Simoni, he now actually seems to have recovered. And he's just sitting there very comfortably, allowing them to do the chasing after his own team leader.
The other rider in that select group, by the way, was the Penaria rider, Giuliano Figueras. Although he looks as though he may not be there now. He's not in this shot anyway. Piccoli is. Oh, this is Figueras right here. In fact, I think he's gone clear. No, he's still with that. He's still with the group of Popovic.
Well, Simoni now riding away from the rest of the group, but just look at the defensive riding there being done by Cunego. He's got himself a stage win under his belt this year in the Giro. There is Pellizotti moving up into 4th place. And I tell you what, riding like a champion on the front is Jaroslav Popovic. He's not worried at all about the presence of little Damiano Cunego there at all. He's decided he wants to ride himself up to towards the leader there, and he's going to have to do something very solid because he's already losing 24 seconds to Gilberto Simoni. We have no news at all on the position of Bradley McGee, so it could be there will be a massive change in the overall classification. Right now, if we stop the race, the man in the pink would be Gilberto Simoni, and he's now riding into the last kilometre of this climb.
And he doesn't look like a guy who's losing time just now. In fact, he's gaining time over everybody here at 1 kilometre to go. We're just up to the snow line. 1,471 metres is the finishing line today. And Simoni on stage 3 of the Giro d'Italia. And when there's still 167 of the 168 riders who started in this event, is riding towards the pink jersey. And Garzelli, I'm not too sure where he is. Oh, he's still with the group, because with those shots, when they tighten in, it's usually a sign they've been left. But Garzelli now is being left to do all of the pacemaking, and Cunego will not be arguing about that. Here's Cunego here. He's riding with Pellizotti, and up front is Figueras, and they must be the next 3 on the road now, and they've got Popovic in trouble.
Well, Popovic has popped. I'm really surprised to see that, because just a few moments ago he was the man on the front dictating the pace in this group. The pace making now has been taken up by Figueras. Cunego is riding very comfortably in 2nd place there. All he's waiting for is a chance to see the finishing line, and he's going to try and make it 1-2 for Seiko.
The lonely figure now, little sly glance over his shoulder there for Gilberto Simoni. He will see no one. This has been a significant climb, but I have a feeling that now Cunego is free of most of those riders. The gap is closing down. A little bit of puffing and blowing there by Simoni. Nearly 6 hours, a long day today to cover 120 miles. They're not that far behind. There's Pellizotti, and there is the long approach to the line now, but there's no doubt who's going to win. It's a question of who is going to lead at the end of stage 3 here at the Corno al Scala. Little bit of an effort now required from Gilberto Simoni. It's going to be seconds in it. This is the chase group, 4 of them lining up. In the distance there is Simoni.
A great job of work being done by Damiano Cunego, just sitting there allowing all of the others to try and get themselves the gap, but they're not eating into the advantage of Gilberto Simoni. Although they are in the same straightaway, it is very much foreshortened by the camera lens.
But I think they have closed the gap here, and I think the effort has come from Figueras and Pellizotti. It certainly hasn't come from Damiano Cunego. He's done nothing wrong in chasing down his teammate at all, but as you can see now, we're just tickling the snow line, just coming up towards the end of the month of May. A very inhospitable place in the winter, but it is a great ski station.
Garzelli coming back as well. They're just around the corner. This is a very long final kilometre. Although it's measured out at 1,000 metres, it feels a lot longer than that to all of these riders here. Out of the saddle once more, Gilberto Simoni is definitely going to get the stage win, but for him, will he have enough time to get himself the pink jersey?
Well, a huge effort required, because I think Simoni went perhaps a little bit early here. He hasn't looked that fluid in the last kilometre or so. He's going to be happy enough to see the line, I think, but it's a big effort for him. It's certainly a win for Seiko, the 2nd in as many days, and that's what counts. Gilberto Simoni, the clock starts now. He looks tired. It's a question of whether he's done enough to get pink as well. There's the sprint now for 2nd place. It's going to be between Pellizotti, Figueras and Cunego.
Further back goes Garzelli.
And look at that, Cunego's taken 2nd as well, a 1-2 for Seiko.
And only 15 seconds, and with the game of the time bonuses, it's going to be very close as to whether or not Cunego is going to be the new leader in the overall classification. I think he's done enough to do it, but it's going to be very close indeed.
Well, I'll tell you what, one thing's for sure, with another 2nd place backed up to a 2nd and a win so far, he is now into the slot nice and clearly as the points leader of this race anyway. Well, it looks as though over the line now with the chase group of Garzelli, they've all conceded time. This is going to be seen as a good day. Is this Brad McGee's group? Yes, it is. He's a little bit further down the mountain. You can see the clock still counting here.
Well, Brad McGee, I think, has done a pretty good ride there. A minute and a half since Gilberto Simoni crossed the line. It's going to be very tight, I think, between Simone and Cunego as to who is going to be the leader in the overall classification. But I think Gilberto Simone has got enough time in hand to take himself the overall lead, and he feels very confident. This is what he wanted to do today. He wanted to stamp his authority not only on the Giro, but I think on the team as well. Getting himself a very illustrious win here, just under the snow line. Certainly makes you feel very cold on a stage like this. That's the order over the finishing line. Simone ahead of Cunego by 15 seconds. Pelazzotti at 16 seconds. Popovic coming in at the tail end of that group. But Gilberto Simone just showing his fill once again. Once the roads tilt upwards, he really does like to fly.
I think he might even feel a little bit relieved here. I think he will get now by about 15 seconds the Maglia Rosa. That'll give him the lead he wants, and of course a little message going back to his teammate Damiano Cunego that the big man is still the boss. In fact, 13 seconds the official gap. Popovic third, he slips one place, Pelazzotti, and out now goes Brad McGee. He conceded in the end over 2 minutes.
Well, you know, what was impressive to me was Brad McGee stayed with that group for a very long time, and even he, I think, was nurturing hopes of staying in the pink jersey for a little bit longer, but that wasn't to be.
On to stage 4 now. The riders going back through a town they've already passed through, Porretta Terme, onto the Civitella in the Val di Chiana. Another long day here, 120 miles being followed by this stage of 114 or 184 kilometres. A little bit more friendly though, the gradients now, as we move on towards the Valley di Chiana.
Pataki here at the side of the road.
Now this is strange because that doesn't look like a mechanical to me.
No, he's got some kind of a problem here. It's in fact Marco Velo is alongside him there, but I cannot imagine what is wrong with Alessandro Pataki here at all. It could be some kind of crash. It could be that somebody has actually rear-ended him. This can happen sometimes in the main field. The rider just rides into you from behind with his handlebars, and it causes an instantaneous kind of a cramp, but this does not look very good at all for Alessandro Pataki.
Well, I've really no idea. Oh, here we are. We can have a look now. Well, you could be right, Paul. He could have been hit from behind. He's
actually bowed over there in pain. You see, he's just grabbing his thigh, just inside the back of the thigh. I think what has happened here is somebody's actually ridden into the back of him, almost as if you whack somebody in the thigh and give him a dead leg, and he's obviously in a certain amount of pain.
Well, Velo is normally his lead-out man, very sharp to spot his captain in trouble. Anyway, he's going away again, but he's got a bit of work to do. He's got a bit of work to do because, and this is the stage that would have suited him, of course. I'm not too sure now. More the question is he going to get to the finish? Well, let's get back up to the action now. As we move on again now, the sign that Fassa Bortolo have got the men up here. There he is. He's back in the thick of it now and looking for a victory here, but I wonder what was going on there.
Well, I think we'll only find out after the race is over, but the rain has certainly started to come down a fraction here, and it's going to make this run-in very dangerous indeed. Team Fassa Bortolo now inside of 3 kilometers to go to the finish, trying to set up Alessandro Pataki here for win number 2. Mario Cipollini's teammate is moving forward there, now does.
We're looking here now, and Cipollini, we've seen nothing of him at all. We certainly wouldn't have seen anything of him yesterday, of course, as we're now seeing the rain just loosening off the roads a bit here, which is not going to make for a very good sprint down in Civitella.
Looks like Lombardi on the front there on the left-hand side. A bit of argy-bargy going on. A lot of shoulders moving around left and right. Cipollini is not too far away there. He'll be looking to try and get himself a win. He wants to try and extend that win of his in the Giro. Now there's Cipollini with the white helmet on.
Well, the question is Cipollini up to the Giro d'Italia now? I think this will be his last one. He is the record holder with the stage wins, but he's finding a new man on the block now. And we do now know that, in fact, Alessandro Pataki did crash on the Poggio di Sugame after 71 kilometres. And what we saw was the aftermath of the fall when he seemed to stop in pain. But he's back in the race now, and he's challenging for the win. Looks like big Magnus Bagsted's up here as well.
He'll be challenging for the win too. He'll enjoy these weather conditions. It's very cold. There's Lombardi. He's right on the wheel of Naudus, the man who last year was not very popular with Mario Cipollini, and it's amazing how the sport of cycling works out. One day you're an enemy, the next day you're an ally, and that's certainly the case here for Domino Vacanzi, trying to get control, trying to break the rhythm of the Fassa Bortolo lead out, because if you allow Fassa Bortolo to get themselves lined out into a big line on the front end of the main field, it is very, very difficult to beat Alessandro Petacchi.
Well, there's riders moving to the front now, but I didn't see Mario Cipollini trying to get in on this one. This isn't the finish. Remember, he crashed out on a stage like this last year. It was too slippery, and that was when Robbie McEwen popped out and won the day, and McEwen's much more a better bet here as they begin to fan out. Big Magnus Bagstead here looking for somebody to follow, but he's finding himself washed away here in the sprint now, and Cadamuro is the Donardi rider down there. Now the sprint has started, and there's no Cipollini there. He's too far down. There he is. As they start to go now, it looks like we've also got a move coming as well from Olaf Pollock, and a familiar sprint, and the lead out again is coming from the boys of Fassa Bortolo. Sean, there's been a crash, and that looks like Cipollini has gone down, and there's a multiple pile up there, but it's left them clear at the front, and Alessandro Petacchi, crash injuries and all, he's taking on Robbie McEwen, and Petacchi gets his second win.
You can't beat that, man. You just cannot beat Alessandro Petacchi at the moment. If you give him a straight run at the finishing line, he has got such an incredible turn of speed over 400 meters, but this is the crash at 200 meters to go, and I feel that one of the riders who went down very hard down there was Mario Cipollini. That's him.
It's a case of deja vu, isn't it, Paul? Because this is what happened last year, and it wasn't long before Cipollini was on his way home, and I wonder now, he's gone down with Popsiev there, the Ukraine.
And I think it was actually one of his teammates who took him down there. If we get a chance to look at the slow motion, I think he was on the wheel of his teammates, Andrus Oz, and he went down very heavily indeed. No control at all, and he banged himself down onto the ground. And this is the damage. This, in fact, is Tonti, who was also involved in that crash, and he actually went right up into the air. He's snapped his forks there.
Well, maybe that was the cause of the crash, the snapping of the forks. But we'll have a look if we can again. But there's Cipollini. In fact, we can't see the front of his ankle, but it looks quite nastily gashed at the moment, and he's probably in need of some stitches. The irony is that the man he once blamed for causing an accident, Nasdux here, is now his teammate and has gone back to help him.
That's the irony of the sport. There you can see Tonti's bike is completely snapped there. There's the blood on Mario Cipollini's ankle there. Confirmation of the win. Let's not forget Alessandro Petacchi getting himself win number 2 there. But let's have a look here if we can see right in the middle. You can see the lead out coming for Alessandro Petacchi there, but it's Auds who was actually looking over his shoulder to see where Mario Cipollini was. Cipollini was the first man to go down, and then one or two riders have gone right over the top of him, and I think somebody slid into Cipollini with a chainring, and that's probably what caused the damage to his ankle.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. But that was well, I'm surprised only a handful of riders actually fell down there, but Cipollini got knocked around a bit while he was lying on the floor.
Cipollini went down first.
He was down first, no question. I think he touched a wheel in front, perhaps. You know, as you get older, your reflexes slow down. I'm not saying that's what's happened, but it's a possibility.
Well, I think it is. I think Cipollini's very much on the rivet here, and that is not going to be good for his morale. I only hope that he'll get up from that and ride on tomorrow's stage, because Cipollini sometimes can spit the dummy and decide to take his bicycle home, and I hope that is not the case, because if it is, it might be the last time we see Mario Cipollini at the Giro d'Italia.
Well, he's been a fantastic entertainer. I certainly hope it isn't, but age catches up with everybody, and Petacchi, although he's 30 years of age, is the new man on the block here. Another stage win for him, and his teammates saluting there because their job done to perfection. Let's have a look again.
Yes, it is. You see there's Oates there in the middle, was looking over his shoulder left and right. He probably heard Cipollini trying to communicate with him. Cipollini was caught on the wrong side, and that's the impact there that has caused the damage to Mario Cipollini's ankle. And he will certainly not feel very comfortable tomorrow morning when he gets out of bed.
That was unlucky. I mean, that rider desperately tried to avoid him by sliding his bike across, and it didn't work out.
Just look at that. The man who led out Alessandro Petacchi there in about 10th position in the white and blue jersey there, he's got his finger on the microphone to tell the team manager behind, we've got the win.
And that's before he crosses the line. But there you go. And he's again the man who's the loser on the day, Robbie McEwen, nearest camera. Another second place for Robbie, and the rain continues to come down here at the Val di Chiana. 114 miles, pretty fast miles today. And as expected, in the end, a rather controversial, but no change in the overall. The sprint for Pataki, and that the pink jersey staying on the shoulders of last year's winner Simoni. 13 seconds advantage over second and third place.
Well, certainly not a great day, but for Gilberto Simoni, a day in the pink jersey, and a day he's been able to keep hold of the pink jersey. But once again, the road now heading out further up the continent.
So we stay in the start town overnight because Civitella, where we finish, is where we start today. 111 miles, 177 kilometres to Spalletta. And this is a sprinter's delight, and it could be another day for Pataki. There's Spoleto, that's where we're headed to. And this is the peloton under pressure again now. And they're going to have to learn to break the tactics, I think, of Fassa Bortolo.
Well, I think that's what Acqua Saponi are trying to do, because they've got themselves a very good organisation on the front end of the main field. Gruppo Compacto, the whole of the main field together. The winds and rain of yesterday have disappeared. The red helmets on the Acqua Saponi team here trying to lead out either of their two sprinters. They've got two very fast men on board. One of them is Freddy Rodriguez, the other is Crescenzo D'Amore.
Cipollini, by the way, did take to the start, has been seen riding near the front, but he has had stitches, I believe, in his lower leg. There's the readers now as they're trying to sort this one out amongst themselves, but it's not organised this at all by Pataki.
Oh no, Pataki's team has certainly not got the organisation on the front end of the main field. That role really here belonging to Freddy Rodriguez's team, Acqua Saponi. They've got a very rapid line out on the front end of the main field. Nauders is there in third position. He may well have been given a free rein to ride his own race here this afternoon, because Cipollini will not be mixing it with the rest of the pack. There is Pataki in around about 8th position.
Well, Crescenzo D'Amore won the Inter Giro, by the way, and he keeps his lead in that competition, but there hasn't been much in the way of breakaways at all today. This is a perfect sprinter's result heading into Spalletta, and Pataki, surprising me, but doesn't seem to be organised at all here for this sprint. It could go almost any direction.
Well, Lombardi up there into second place. Pataki is not in the first 10 at the moment, but I did just get a glimpse of him as they go inside 2 kilometres to go. A lot of arms and hands coming off the handlebars, swinging off there. It looks as if it's one of the teammates of Freddy Rodriguez. Now, look at that. A few moments ago, there was no organisation by Alessandro Pataki's team. Now there are 3 men on the front of the main field. There's Robbie McEwen.
And there's the 1 kilometre kite as they now run in. So they're about 58 seconds from the line right now. It's not as well organised, though, by Pataki today. They've got 3 men there. Where's the lead-out man, Marco Velo?
Pataki's in the top 10 there, but he seems to be a little bit far off this afternoon. No, he's around about 10th, so just a little bit too far back. He really needs to be on the wheel of his teammates, and they're now down to just 1.
Well, there's an irony for you, Paul, because his teammates are totally disorganised today. They haven't got it together. Looks over his shoulder and looks straight into the face of McEwen. McEwen did not want the lead at this point at all now, as the FDJ riders start to come up as well. There's a little bit of shoulder punching going on too. Pataki is out of this one, I think. There's Brad McGee on the far right of the stage, and Olaf Pollock is also here. This is going to be a very strange result today, because the big sprinter is sitting it out. He is not going to come up on this one now as they line up for the finish. Marco Zanotti is the rider in the yellow, about third wheel off to the left of our picture. And now as they go to the line, McEwen is right in the thick of it and could win it. Pollock's coming late. McEwen hits the line first. Robbie McEwen gets the stage win, which has eluded him on 2 occasions so far this week. A very strange sprint indeed. Pataki was not there.
There was no control at the front end of the main field. Nobody had the race completely and utterly lined out. Maybe Alessandro Pataki had said to the teammates this afternoon, look, I just don't have the legs. Let's not forget he was involved in that nasty crash yesterday, and it can knock the stuffing out of a bike rider over the last few hundred metres. And this is the point here where you can just see Alessandro Pataki moving up. I thought he'd recovered at this point, but then he decided it was just a little bit too dangerous. He was actually forced to slow down there. He's sitting up and allowing the guys at the front end to go on with the sprint. McEwen is amazing. There he's in 4th place. He dances around, moves from left to right, waits to see when the gap is going to open. And today, it was the day for the Australian.
Just over 25 miles an hour, nearly 41 kilometres today. Very quick stage indeed. The sprinters did have the day, and a credible sprint it was too by the Australian McEwen, who says he's come here to win stages and go home midway through the race. He won't go into the final mountains. There's the finish for you. as he takes a very fast approach to the line. When he sees the line, and he's obviously without Alessandro Petacchi, he gets very annoyed when all the publicity goes the way of Petacchi, by the way. But McEwen now showing he is the best. A late run by Olaf Pollock, yet another second. Second in the prologue and a couple of seconds in the sprint, and he's really annoyed about that one. Bangs his handlebars there.
And Crescenzo D'Amore was pretty much up there as well, as was Freddie Rodriguez, who wasn't very far away at all. Rodriguez starting to ride himself a very consistent race, but Robbie McEwen, he certainly does like to rise to the occasion. He's a very consistent sprinter, and unlike Alessandro Petacchi, he never has anybody to lead him out. He has to do all the work himself.
There's the result for you. Same time for everybody. Polak, Zanotti, the order on the line. Robbie McEwen gets the win. He's been here before, and the Australian never happier than when he is winning at stages of the bike race. No jersey awaits him, of course. There'll be no change overall at all after this fifth stage here. D'Amore keeps the Inter-Giro competition. Simoni stays in the pink for a third day. McEwen now has done enough to get himself into the points leaders jersey, though. There's the result. 13 seconds the gap. Popovic hanging in there third. He finished third last year. He won't be forgetting that either, and it was third to Simoni. The big surprise, I think, is the continuing great form Damiano Cunego, as we now move on to stage 6 here. Onward we go from Spoleto to Valmontone, 164 kilometers, that's 103 miles, and one second category mountain along the way, but basically it's mid-term. And it's very early, in fact, rather. It will mean that we should see the bunch sprinters come into action again. Looking down from the helicopter there, as you can see, the weather not very friendly at all in these early days of the Giro d'Italia.
Very nasty weather, actually. You can see, though, once again, this incredible team. This team, Phil, I have to say, have changed over the last week of racing. Fassa Bortolo, a team that last year at the Giro d'Italia were riding as a team to put men to the top end of the overall classification, this year are just riding for one thing, and that is to try and get as many stage wins as possible for one Alessandro Petacchi. It's a team that's been completely and utterly built around him. There's nobody at all has got a chance of riding high in the overall classification, so all they can do on every flat stage is ride flat out for Alessandro.
The tail of the group, Coda del Gruppo. Is it miserable or what, as the rain is now quite torrential here? And the riders, just to see the gaps between the riders and the peloton, they're all trying to look for their own route here and not get their faces covered in the spray off the wheel in front. It's every man for himself. They are soaking wet today, but over roads like this is a very quick pace, and you've got to stay alert and sharp. A touch of wheels now and you'll slide on this road surface for a kilometre.
And the scary thing about this kind of condition as well is, in fact, if you do touch your brakes, they actually don't work in weather conditions like this. It takes a few seconds for the brake pads to actually bite in. So that's why you can see the slightly bigger gaps between the riders as they head into town now. This is an absolutely torrential downpour here as we head into the finishing town of Valmontone. And still a lot of riders from Fassa Bortolo on the front end of the main field. And arm just going up there. I think somebody's probably had a flat tyre.
Well, the only activity of the day really came from Fortunato Balliani. He was away an awful long time. He managed to clean up a little bit along the route, but now he's back in the pack. At least I hope he's still in the pack. These are hazardous right-handers too under the narrow entry under that railway bridge. We're into town. And this time it looks to me as though organisation is back to normal here. That rider has come down, Zach Crescenzo D'Amore, who has just fallen there. In fact, it's Ferragato, I think it was. But he must have slid on that corner into the tunnel. He looks okay, but he's out of the hunt for the sprint. Now, as I said, it's back to normal for the men from Fassa Bortolo. And the bottom of our picture there, Alessandro Petacchi looking for win 3.
Well, he's got all of his men on the front end of the main field. This is Tossato, who's doing a fabulous job. A last-minute burst here coming from the world champion. This is the kind of move that could cause the surprise, especially in these kind of weather conditions. And he's got a good gap.
Well, that's a great move by Astaloa, and it's nice to see the world champion showing his jersey off. Hasn't had a chance to do that this year yet, but he has shown signs of good form. There's that little rise here. He must have been paying attention when he looked at his overnight contour route, and he's chosen that little rise to try and open the gap. The sprinters have got 2 left, and the third man is Petacchi. But he got the move. I'm not sure he's got the gap.
Well, he's got a gap. He's still got a gap of around about 30 or 40 bike lengths. All he needs now is a general slowing down at the front end of the main field, but it has put a lot of pressure on Fassa Bortolo as they come inside of the last kilometre. Tossato was the man doing most of the pacemaking, but I think the man taking over now is going to be Marco Velo. Still two teammates on the front, and Astrolo, he's just got to keep going. He's inside of 800 metres, and he may well have just got it. But you know, this sprint, when the sprint starts to unleash, they're kicking in at 60 kilometres an hour.
800 metres, he's now at 600 metres. He's got a good chance. Half a kilometre to the line is an awful long way, though, when the peloton are right behind and have yet to open up the sprint. Final lead out for Pataki, who doesn't want to move until he has to. And Olaf Pollock is again moving up towards the front here now, but Astrolo is swamped at about 400 metres to the line here. It was a brave effort and it would have been a great result, but that's all history now as Pataki is poised for win number 3. No sign of McEwen. Pollock has got the wheel of Pataki. Pollock, who keeps finishing second, and I think he's going to be second again because Alessandro Pataki is going to get his third win. Pollock is coming, but he gives up on the line. Pataki gets it, and poor old Olaf Pollock is second yet again.
Nice tactical move there on the way, and it's like there's been a crash just after the finishing line. Actually, this was after the finishing. I think that is one of Mario Cipollini's teammates who's gone down very hard there. That is, I think, the Estonian rider Andrus Oj.
Well, I've no idea what happened because our camera's just picking it up, but it doesn't look at all well. He must have clipped somebody, perhaps in the crowd, maybe a photographer there, as he sprinted through the line. It's always a hazardous situation, I have to say, but he really seems to have taken a bad knock there.
Well, I didn't see it at all, but I think it was just after the finishing line that he went down.
It is Oj.
And number 12, yeah.
It is Oj.
72, I mean.
Yeah, that's him, 72. And there's confirmation. Well, let's hope he's okay. There's the field looking a little bit perplexed after that finish in the rain. And this man, he must wonder what's hit him.
Well, he went down very hard in the confusion. Let's have a look and see if we can see where it happened, because just coming up through the finish, you can see there Andrus Oj is on the wheel of his teammate there now, does. There at the front end, there's no confusion at all. Alessandro Pataki gets himself the win ahead of Olaf Polak. But there, just look at that. Ouch. Just after the finishing line, two teammates actually colliding, and Oj was just touching the back wheel of Naudus. There was nowhere to go, and he went down very hard.
He hit that back wheel, and I suppose technically it's nobody's fault except their own there, touch your wheels, but it was a nasty fall clipping that barrier. I think he might have broken his collarbone here. Well, of course, officially he's in the race. It won't be till tomorrow we will know if he starts or not, because he has crossed the finishing line. But the terrible conditions here. The accident happens off to the right of our picture. There's no doubt about the sprinting prowess of Alessandro Pataki. He's got 3 wins now. And Olaf Pollock there, I think he's got 3 seconds, including plus the prologue. There's the touch straight at the camera.
Well, that was very nasty, and there was nothing he could do. You see, as I said earlier, Phil, once you touch the brakes, in a situation like this where it's very, very wet, the bike doesn't slow down at all for a few seconds, and I think we're going to see Andrus Oj there being evacuated to hospital. The ambulance men on hand very quickly indeed. It was over to the right-hand side and not at all to affect the final sprint of Alessandro Pataki, who gets himself a very clean victory. But that was rather embarrassing, that moment there for Domino Vacanzi.
Just watch Nasdaq's here. So you can't see, but he hit the back wheel of Nasdaq's. There's the result anyway. Another win for Pataki, another second for Pollock. Barajo, the sprinter there, also coming into his own now. He got a 3rd place. Nasdaq's crosses the line in 5th and Oj in 7th, but Oj now in doubt of starting tomorrow.
But good to see Freddie Rodriguez up there in 6th position. Freddie's been consistently in the top 10 or 12 places over the last few days, as there's been no change at all in the overall classification. Gilberto Simoni still leads there by 13 seconds from his own teammate.
That is the overall situation at the end of stage number 6. Pataki is now back in the lead of this race in points. Vedman back in the lead in the King of the Mountains. We haven't seen too much of those mountains yet. But the leader is still Gilberto Simoni. Completes another day in the Maglia Rosa. On we go. Stage 7 now, from Frosinone to Montevergine di Mercogliano. 214 kilometres this one. The second category climb with 22 kilometres to go. The Monteforte Erpino. And that could be the springboard for the boys to break away for the finish. And as we look here at the images of the start, in that crash here, it is now, I'm afraid, a no-go for Andrus Oog, out with his injuries, and also joining him is team leader Mario Cipollini, not recovering from the crash he had 2 days ago. Both riders from Domina Vacanzi go out of the Giro d'Italia at the start of stage 7. That's really sad.
Very sad for the team that we expected, but it's again the story of the first week of the Giro. Another crash out on the open road, and it looked very much to me as if that was one of the riders from Vini Calderola, Zampieri, who went down quite hard with the French rider Nicolas Fritsch.
Yeah, well, they've had a touch of wheels on a rather silly straight. Well, they're saying it's Olivier Zug, but that's what not what his number says at all. Oh yes, I beg the pardon, Paul. It is Olivier Zug, the Swiss rider on Saunier Duval, who has taken the fall quite heavily. Young man, nasty. He's waiting for a bike here, and they could do with getting it to him a little bit quickly, because it's warmed up today, but it's still a long way back to the peloton, and he'll have a hard job to catch him.
At least the weather's a lot better this afternoon, and different team on the front end of the main field here this afternoon as we go through 20 kilometres to go.
This is through the beautiful area now of Campania. Lush green mountains all around the riders. They're only tickling them though, as they feel they're getting themselves a little bit organised, and it's not the team of Fassa Bortolo at the minute. Inside 20 kilometres to go as we head down towards Mercagliano. We're off the mountain now, the long twists of the Erpino, and that was won by Niki Ebersol from Mazzanti and Daniela Righi. 41 seconds back at those two went over the top. They were in an early breakaway today. They've all been swept up now, 6 of them being wiped out, the last 2 being Mazzanti and Niki Ebersol.
Well, Phonak have been a very prominent team in the early days of the Giro d'Italia here. These two riders.
Oh, these are the two that are still away. This is Niki Ebersol, the last 2 of that breakaway, and this other one being Mazzanti.
They're still holding on, but not by very much, because on the front end of the main field, it's basically Vini Calderola who are doing all of the pacemaking here this afternoon, and that would indicate that Stefano Garzelli feels like he's got a good chance of getting himself the stage win. He may well like this finishing climb towards the end of today's stage, and may well be trying to set himself up for a stage victory.
Well, Mazzanti here on the right of our picture at one stage was the leader of the Tour on the road. He's 2:34 off the Maglia Rosa of Gilberto Simoni in 31st place, but as we look up here now, I think they're starting to wind them in. This is the remnants of the breakaways surrendering here. This will be the Lampre rider being brought back, is it?
Yep, one of the Lampre riders was in that break very early on.
Yeah.
It was originally a group of 6 riders, and they built themselves up a massive advantage of over 6 minutes at one stage, but over the last few kilometres it slowly but surely started to come down. The teammates of Stefano Garzelli on the front, and they're waiting now to catch the final 2 survivors of that 6-man breakaway.
They've done most of the work, Garzelli's teammates. I find that rather strange, when really it should have been the job of the Saeco team to chase down that breakaway. The only dangerous man in it, if there were any dangerous men in it, was Luca Mazzanti at 2:34 down. A call for service here at the back of the race by Radislav Regina, who is the champion, by the way, of Croatia.
Flat tyre for him, and you see how he's not panicking at all. He's actually waiting for the team manager's car to come up right behind him, and that's the best thing to do, just to keep it nice and calm and wait for the team manager to get behind you. And once the team car is there, that's the moment when you should stop and take out the wheel. These are the 2 leaders. They've not got very much more than a minute's advantage right now over the main field, and they don't really look to me, Phil, as if they've got the firepower to hold off the accelerating main field.
No, the field, the field is not too far off the back of them right now. They're the only 2 survivors of the breakaway of 6 that went away after 6 kilometres, after 12 kilometres, 7 miles of racing today. We're now heading into the last 15 or 16 kilometres of the race, and it looks to me as though they're about to be brought back. There's an interesting shot for you. They've just come across from the other side. Now we're going back down the road here, around the roundabout. The peloton virtually all together. That's the latest time check, 1 minute and 15 seconds. They didn't really escape the grips of the peloton at all today, because the biggest gap they got was a shade over 6 minutes.
Still holding on to a minute of that advantage. But you can see the main field is starting to take this final few kilometres very seriously indeed. I think this afternoon we could very well see the challenge coming from Stefano Garzelli, who, by the fact that he sent all of his teammates to the front, must feel that his legs are good and he's got the chance of getting himself a win. There's been no work done on the front of the main field this afternoon by Fassa Bortolo, because obviously they're going to take a back seat with the mountaintop finish here today.
Well, we'll see just what happens here, because this group now has gone over the big climb, really, the Monteforte Irpino, as it tops out with 22 kilometres left to ride, but it's still going to be a tough finish. And you're right, I just can't work out why Sonia Duval have done a lot of the work today, and also the team of Garzelli. And here we go again now, Tenax having another little dig with Renzo Mazzolini. We saw him before a couple of days ago. Now he's trying to open it all up again here, so he's a glutton for punishment, this man. It would be nice to see this small team make a go of it. You know, if the Pro Tour materialises as planned next year, you won't be seeing teams like Tenax in this race, because if you haven't got the big bucks to put into this Pro Tour, you simply won't be riding in the big tours. I'm not sure I agree with the Pro Tour, but we'll see how it pans out.
There's a lot more discussion, I think, going to have to take place before that actually comes to fruition. Certainly it's the smaller teams in many of the big tours that make for the aggressive racing, and that's a big question mark, I think, that hovers over the future of the Pro Tour. This man hasn't got that much of an advantage over the main field, and as you can see, the team on the front is, in fact, that's Team Saeco, who are riding in different coloured jerseys here this afternoon. And if you get a chance to see the jerseys that they're riding in, they've got "Legalise my Cannondale" written all over them, because the Cannondale, in fact, is inside of the regulation weight, and they actually have to make the machine heavier to have it as a legal entity.
These are the boys here at the top of the climb, straining to see who's at the front of the peloton. They haven't got the vision that we've got, of course. Here's the two leaders, they're still clear. Just under 16 kilometres to go. There's no way they're going to stay away now. But coming back to what you're saying there, Paul, about Saeco, they'll catch themselves a bucket full of fines tonight for coming out in the incorrect team strip, but I don't think they'll care, because they've taken a lot of publicity from this black and white horizontal stripe strip that they're in today. And we'll probably get a glimpse of it here come the helmets off. Now this is the workhorse on the Lamprey team, Daniela Righi, who was in the breakaway, and he's probably now quite tired, so he's offered to pick up all of the hats and he'll take them back to the car, and then he'll just ride home to the finish, because he'll be too tired to hold the peloton up this mountain.
Well, that's an indication that they've started the climb. Any race that finishes with a climb in excess of 5 kilometres means the riders are allowed to take off their helmets, and dedication, and a lot of dedication since the start of the Giro, to the departed Marco Pantani, Il Pirata, who passed away earlier on this year on the eve of Valentine's Day on the 13th of February.
Looking now at one rider here trying to set up the fight here. This will be a Sella Italia rider who's going
Iliano.
Yes, Raphael Iliano.
He's been very aggressive since the start of this season as well. We've seen him early on in the races like the Tour de Langkawi. He's a kind of rider who throws complete and utter caution to the wind. This is a very aggressive team, actually, this Columbia Sella Italia team, and although it's a team that doesn't have a huge budget, they certainly managed to get the team lots of publicity in the races that they participate around the world.
Well, it's his third year as a pro, Iliano. He's not won any races of note. He won the prologue on the stage of the Tour Senegal, but I'm not too sure that's a world-class event.
It's a long way from the northern climes of Europe. Anyway, this is Iliano halfway across the gap. The two leaders are still holding on to around about 55 seconds of their advantage. And we did just catch a glimpse of Team Fassa Bortolo abandoning en masse the company of the main field. Not the race itself, but just riding up to the summit of this climb in a certain amount of comfort, and accompanying the leader of the points classification, Alessandro Petacchi.
Well, 15 kilometres to go now, and Iliano trying to add some firepower. There they are, the boys of Fassa Bortolo, having a look at Petacchi, who's in the pink again. No reaction from him, so they'll look after him and take him home today. There'll be no sprint for the finish, not when you see this climb as it hairpins its way up to the summit. It'll be a day for the climbers, and there might be a shift in the Maglia Rosa.
It's a pretty impressive climb, actually. As you can see, these riders going through the helmets off part. There's a sign actually at the side of the road which indicates the moment that the riders are allowed to take off their helmets. It also gives team helpers at the side of the road there a chance to hand up some bottles as well. You can see now, though, that they are inside of the last 10 kilometers of 10 miles of climbing, inside of 15.5 kilometers to go to the summit. Just at the back here, on the far side, is the leader of the Giro classification. That's Crescenzo d'Amore, Mariano Piccoli.
Former winner of the King of the Mountains and the points competition, Piccoli, which is a good mix for you. Sprinter and climbing. Here's the two leaders, nice and warm for them today after the drowning they got yesterday, which took Auge out of the race at the finish. But I think they'll be caught shortly. This is Iliano here now.
He's been joined by Muraglia, the man who was on the attack yesterday. Now, it's interesting how these smaller teams are so aggressive. They're hoping, I think, that there's going to be some kind of marking amongst the big names, but certainly not now.
That one.
That didn't last very long. Once the team of Seiko decide to put the hammer down, it brings everything back together. And this is the strip that they've got. You can see this afternoon. They will get a serious fine for this in the blue and white strip, bearing the...
I'll tell you what, they're obviously in the same mood they were in when they came up the Corno del Scala, because they're trying to shake this out again in their favour. So Gilberto Simoni triumphed there and took the pink jersey. This is what happened at the back of the race when the pressure goes on at the front. They all wave goodbye.
With Schmidt on the front there for Seiko, who was whipping up the pacemaking, and as soon as they do put the pressure on, a lot of riders showing that fatigue is starting to creep in. This looks like Nicky Ebersold is the lone survivor there off the front end of the main field, but as we pull back, we get an indication that the main field really is in angry mood now.
Steady climbs here, and this is the split of the leaders now. This is Nicky Ebersold, and it looks as though once you start to split like this, it's a final desperate attempt, but it's not still too far to go to the top today for Nicky. He was first over the Monteforti at the Pino, and Mazzanti second. They were clear at that point by 40 seconds over the breakaway, which was not too far ahead of the peloton. All changing now. They're both together just as they continue, but judging by the way they are riding, it won't be long before the pack away. In fact, I'm not too sure. We sprung that very quickly. It could be coming up here.
Well, this man was national champion of Switzerland back in 1998. He turned pro back in 1996. But right now he's hoping he's going to survive off the front end of the main field. But with Team Seiko in dominant fashion on the front end of the peloton, I don't think that's going to be the outcome of this afternoon's stage.
I think if our camera swings around, we're going to see the peloton riding pretty close here. Lost the... Well, there they are, right on the tail here. And Ebersold is going to be the last one to be caught. Then it is going to be Peloton Groupé all together. And it's the Seiko riders who are just continuing at the pace setting here, trying once again on a mountain finish to stamp their authority on this year's Giro d'Italia.
Specialetti on the front, followed there by Eddie Mazzolini. Zampieri not too far away. Gilberto Simoni looking cool as a cucumber there in his pink jersey. Very happy with the way the race is developing as we speak. Not too far behind him, Damiano Cunego. There he is, just peeping up into about 5th or 6th position.
And Garzelli again trying to mark there Simoni just on his back wheel. But he hasn't really distinguished himself at all just now in this year's Giro. But it's one man, to me, it appears, against the whole of the Seiko team. And he's got to work out his tactics just to play his cards absolutely right. Otherwise, he'll pay in price. Nice study in motion there.
Specialetti just thinking about riding a tempo for the rest of the team until the big names take over.
Big names going off the bat here, Paul. Because that's the world champion Astaloa.
Well, it's surprising because he had shown some pretty good form over the last couple of days, but maybe he's decided he's not going to be in for the kill at the end of today's stage. He wants to conserve a little bit of energy down towards the end, but it's a very heavy jersey to wear, that maybe not in weight, but certainly in prestige. And the world champion there going off the back of what is still a fairly large group.
It is very surprising. He was showing excellent form. There's Piccoli. I must say that it's the curse of the world champion's jersey, I think. Once you win the world title, you never seem to ride well the following year. And Astaloa finding the weight of that jersey rather heavy this year. That's the little details for you of where we're going. We're going up to 1,260 metres, a maximum gradient of 1 in 10 or 10%. And that's going to be a tough one. It's going to give the strongmen a chance here to get away.
Vladimir Belli from Lampre moving up to the front end of the main field. But obviously, once again, every time we come to a critical mountain stage, it's Team Seiko who want to stamp the authority all over the front end of this main field.
A lot of concentration on the faces of these riders here now. They're all asking themselves, have they got the legs to go when the move comes? And it's certain to come too. Simoni riding deep in the leader part of the peloton here.
There's Belli in the Lamprey. There's Gilberto Simoni looking nice and comfortable in the middle of the pack there. He's got a very solid team here at the Giro d'Italia.
Cunego riding well there. In fact, he's riding right on the front of Simoni as if he's trying to help him. There's a television looking at a television. Don't often see that.
No. Very artistic director we've got here this afternoon. There is Gonchar on the right-hand side, champion of Ukraine. Spezialetti, still the man on the front doing all of the pacemaking. Steve Zampieri is never very far away. I think he's going to be a big ally later on for Stefano Garzelli. The team of Vinny Calderolo have done an awful lot of work here, and I think that's because Garzelli thinks he's got the chance of a win.
Well, he usually pops up in an early stage of the Giro with a stage win. The winner before, so the Giro d'Italia. Stefano Garzelli, like Simoni, coming back from a little bit of disgrace from being involved with doping, but Simoni was exonerated later. And now he's come to prove at yet another point. Try and defend his championship one last year. 10 kilometres still to go. And if they keep this sort of tempo up, there won't be more than 10 riders together at the finish, I don't think.
Julio Perez at the back there in the orange jersey of Panaria. And just alongside him there was Charlie Vergelius wearing number 69, the young British rider, who was a very integral part of this Denardi team.
Yes, he'll be very pleased because Charlie's got a very defined job in this race, and that's to help team captain Sergei Gonchar make a good result. And he'll be the last sort of post, I think, for Gonchar in the mountains, because Charlie's a pretty good climber. And he's just sitting near the back at the moment. He knows what his team leader is. There's nobody of note amongst the leaders missed this move yet.
Well, there's Pavel Tonkov. He's actually riding very well here at the Giro d'Italia. Seems to be enjoying riding for a smaller team. Is certainly not looking for a high place in the overall classification. He's really been brought into this team, I think, to look after Stefano Garzelli. And he's the kind of rider who has got so much tactical knowledge on board that that's the thing to have alongside a man who's trying to win the Giro d'Italia. And that's certainly why I think he's just enjoying possibly his last season as a professional.
Slina Specialetti, he rides like this, and yet he's 22 minutes behind overall. His job is very, very simple. He is a domestique on the squad. It's his job now to keep the pace high and try and stop anybody attacking the leaders of the Tour, and then drop off when others take over and lose time, because time to him is unimportant. But Specialetti doing a great job here of destroying some of the tail of this field, and he's got plenty of help too. There's Mazzolini. Then we go back into the heat of the moment here. Gilberto Simoni at 9 kilometres, looking as though he's relishing the last 9 kilometres. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go again.
No, Stefano Garzelli's not far away. He's always very close to his own teammate, Steve Zampieri, who's looking pretty good. And I think this is another rider scooting out of the back there. Looks like Bo Hamburger, who's also slipping off the back end of the peloton.
Yes, they hang as long as they can, and then they just say, that's it.
In fact, he was waiting for his own team leader, Gerard Trumpuch, who must have had a mechanical incident there. Just caught it just a few moments ago. Now, he's pretty high up in the overall classification, which is why Hamburger is sat up to wait for him to pace him back into the main field.
He's had a great start to the Giro, there's no doubt about that. He was reaching to change his front wheel there. There's Garzelli. Now this is mano a mano, because this is the two big rivals, the two big Giro winners, the two big Giro champions, Garzelli, Simoni. Look at that. Don't even look at each other. Just keep telling each other with motion who is going the best.
This is psychological battle going on between these two riders here, and in cycling jargon what they would say is they're actually breathing out of their ears, because they don't want the other guy to see that they're under any pressure at all, just trying to keep the face nice and calm and not show any of the inner struggle that's going on. There is Cunego looking pretty comfortable. There's Gonchar, Popovic over in the white jersey on the right hand side. David Rebellin, he's never been very close to the front, but never been very far away, and he could be the big surprise in the latter part of the Giro, although he's never been really good in the big mountains.
The rider's taking the chance here to just move up a little bit.
It's tough being a teammate. You've just got to go to the front when you're on a big squad like this and ride your heart out until you can do it no longer, and then just pull off and try and survive and make sure you can stay in the race once you get up to the summit of the climbs.
There's still a lot of racing to come on this climb, though. Just scored sight there in the green jersey. First time we've seen him, actually, Fabian Weckmann. Now the pressure. This is Simone. He's itching to have a go. Is he going to try? He's testing Garzelli. Garzelli's gone with him. Figueras is number 31 there. And it's Figueras who's going to put in a little bit of a move here. So now that's it. They've started the moves now. I think we're going to find Simone will react to this one. This is Igor Pugacci from Denardi. Now he's the teammate of Sergei Gonchar. He's freewheeling round the bend there because he's come right up behind the bikes.
He's joined there by a rider from Panario as well, and it looked to me for a moment as if Gilberto Simoni was going to put the hammer down very early on.
And in fact, it's not the rider who I thought
Emmanuel
it was.
Sella is the young rider who's come up here.
He's never had a win. He's a young pro.
Yep, but he's a very young bike rider, 17th in the overall classification, a minute 45 down. But you see these guys are now being very, very observant. This is again teammates of Gilberto Simoni on the front end of the main field. Look how quickly Sella was ticking over that pedaling revolutions there. He was really spinning at around about 110 revolutions a minute. This man is obviously a very good climber. Never heard very much about him in the past, but he's obviously a pretty good man because this is a select group already. Well,
they have a habit of sending new names to the things like the Tour of Italy, rather, not the Tour de France. He's only 23, Emmanuel Sella, and he has never won a race in his life, but then he's only been a pro about 5 months.
Well, there's Simone there in the front end of the main field.
Look at this, Simone getting, I thought he was on his radio there, I think he was.
Figueras.
Now this is the attack I thought it was when Sella went, because it may have softened the ground up Sella to allow Figueras to attack. He's been riding pretty well. He's gone now. Again, he's up amongst it. The motorbikes have got to be more alert when riders sprint off the front.
Well, he's in 6th place in the overall classification. He's only 45 seconds off the lead now. He's the kind of rider that maybe Gilberto Simoni won't feel has got a very good chance of winning overall after 3 weeks of racing, and might force some of the other riders to take up the pacemaking and chase him down. But I tell you what, when he went, he opened up the gap pretty quickly. This is Sella going again.
Well, they've come back together. Sella's tried to go again. Well, he better look left now because Simone has gone this time and Garzelli was ready for him. And I think maybe Simone may slow down now. He's been quickly marked by Garzelli, then followed by Figueras. Sella has found his legs again. And this rider coming right on top, Eddie Mazzolini. It's all back together. And a counter move straight away from Sella. Or is it? Yes.
Yep. This is great. This is fabulous to see a young rider. This is turning out to be very much the Giro d'Italia of the young riders. A lot of new names coming to the fore. Sella is going to just try and blow the front end of this race apart if he can, to set something up for his teammate Giuliano Figueras, who is riding there in about 5th place. Oh, this is the leader, by the way, of the King of the Mountains classification.
Yes, he won the very first climb of the Giro, which is just on a week ago now. And Fabian Weckmann in trouble when the big boys are turning the screw a little bit tighter. And still Garzelli, Paul, marks only Simone. He's not looking at anybody else's attacks.
No, he's sitting right on the wheel of Gilberto Simoni. Emmanuel Sella just keeps accelerating. And the reason is because they're trying to set something up for Figueras here. Another good move, and look at that. Straight onto his wheel is Damiano Cunego.
Well, that was they've obviously marking man for man like a football match here now. Looks like Cunego's job to look after Figueras. Remember, Figueras could take the lead here, but not while he's got Cunego on his back wheel, that's for sure. And if those two riders go away, then it would be pink jersey staying with Saeco, but changing shoulders and going across to Cunego.
Difficult situation though for Cunego here. He's 2nd overall in the classification, 13 seconds in arrears, and listen to all those motorbikes hitting their horns. They're trying to get out of the way. The race referee, I'm sure right now, is shouting, clear out, get away from the front end of the race. This is at the back of the group. This is David Rebellin, and he's not looking very comfortable at all. In fact, he's looking a little bit podgy.
Yes, he is. He's looking as though he's got nothing like his form, but he didn't really want to ride this race. The team more or less persuaded him. His heart doesn't appear to have been in it since the start because he's nursing good form for the single-day classics. These two are going clear. Now, Cunego is playing absolutely the perfect teammate here. He's not helping the attack, and yet he knows that if this breakaway succeeds, he'll be the next leader.
Well, it would be a great move for him. That looks like Bradley McGee. In fact, no, Philippe Gilbert who's going off the back of the group there. Gilbert has done very well to stay in contact with this group. There is Rebellin.
I think he's going off the back at the moment. He's not enjoying it either.
He certainly doesn't look very comfortable at all there. 1:15 with the bleached blonde hair at the back end of the group, and I think his kilometres are numbered here as to whether or not he stays in contact with the main field.
When you get down onto the whip end, you know that if there's another rapid acceleration at the front, you're the next one to get detached. And this is the front now. Zampieri has got in amongst it for Garzelli. Cunego is here. They've come back up to the two leaders now. The status quo again. Zampieri takes a good look at Figueras, as if almost to say, what are you doing?
Well, I have to say, Gilberto Simoni has to say a very big thank you there to Damiano Cunego, because he played the absolute perfect teammate. He went with the move but never contributed at all to it. And at 23 years of age, that must have been very difficult, because he obviously was dreaming about the possibility of the pink jersey.
Yeah, but these professionals, all for one on the Seiko team at the moment. And both of the riders now clearly sitting on very good form for the competition here. And you wouldn't have thought that a couple of weeks ago. Simoni wasn't showing good form at all, but he came good just before this race got underway. They like to come in a little bit below top form, ride themselves in. Rebelline's gone. There he is at the end.
Struggling, and there's not many riders left, but he's lost 2 or 3 bicycle lengths. I think the next time we get an acceleration, we can say goodbye to David Rebellin. Look at the face here on Steve Zampieri. He really believes that his man there in about 5th position, Stefano Garzelli, can win the race from this group here this afternoon.
5 kilometres to go. And Rebellin in trouble. That's 3 miles still to climb. And Rebellin set now to lose big time, because he's been unhooked. If there's no slowing down of the pace, and it looks to be about 20-25 riders still up there. Bit surprised to see Rebellin detach at this stage, but I do feel, after his marvellous World Cups campaign, that his heart is not in this race.
No, it's very difficult. 5 kilometres to go, and still a fairly compact group, with Steve Zampieri doing an incredibly long turn on the front end of the main field, and not too far away either is Pavel Tonkov. Now he's riding, look at that, he's riding alongside there Stefano Garzelli. He'd be talking to Garzelli, asking him how he is, giving him words of encouragement, because I think that's what they've brought him on board here for, with Vinny Calderolo, to look after Stefano Garzelli, who they believe now. Look at that, you see. This man has got so much talent. Just let me come by, I'll dictate the pace. We don't want to put our leader under too much pressure, and then we'll try and accelerate as we get just that little bit closer towards the finish.
Yes, that was fine riding there by the man with the experience, just tapping Zampieri on the shorts there, saying just cool it for a moment, let me set the pace and take a break.
Oof, but look at the tempo he's dictating. This is amazing.
Taking a break, making a break maybe.
I'm not sure I like his haircut, but he's certainly still got the power that took him to the victory in the Giro d'Italia a couple of years ago, and he's put his own teammate under a certain amount of pressure. Even Gilberto Simoni didn't look very comfortable there. Eddie Mazzolini just in front of Jaroslav Popovic, as we get a chance to look at the back end of the main field, and there's 1 or 2 riders here are certainly hoping that Pavel Tonkov is going to just ease it off a little bit.
The Colombian Laverde last in the line there.
There's Brad McGee.
Brad McGee's still in there, isn't he?
Yep. Pavel Tonkov popped his teammate there, Steve Zampieri. They're now trying to set this up for Stefano Garzelli. They want to see if there's any weakness in the armour of Gilberto Simoni. And I tell you what, he's not only hurting Gilberto Simoni, he's hurting everybody else in this group, and this is a big group of names.
4 kilometres left to climb, a little bit less than that now, just on 2¼ miles left to go to the top. There's still a big group here and nobody able to get away, and I think the reason that Tonkov has come here is to steady this pace. I think it was getting a little bit of a rough ride for Garzelli, or he wants to put Garzelli in a position to try and go for it alone.
Well, the size of the group right now would certainly really suit a man like Stefano Garzelli. He's no stranger at all to winning mountaintop finishes from a small group like this. But Agnoli at the back there for Seiko, he's saying, oh, please let me go to the front and do a bit of work with Gilberto Simoni. But all he can do is just scramble to stay in contact.
8 days we've been running now in the Giro d'Italia, and there's no sign of a clear leader, but Simoni doing everything right and trying not to use too much of his energy until we get to the big mountains. His arch rival in previous Giri is Garzelli, and there he is sat right behind Cunego. And I think there that Pavel Tonkov wasn't too happy with the proximity of the television cameras.
I know, he was asking them to get out of the way because he feels that they're in fact causing the acceleration at the front end of the peloton. but look at the work that he's done there, because that has reduced the number of riders to not very many more than 20.
I think it's back to 18 and 19. A quick count from the helicopter there. I got lost after 18, but that looks about what it is now. As you can see, a little bit of the angle of the climb here now. We're looking for the 3 kilometre banner.
Dario Cioni is still in there, and he's going to ride high in the overall classification. And Brad McGee is still in contact there, just at the back end of the group. Now, he seems to be riding himself into pretty good form here. Now, another move by Figueras, followed immediately by Cunego.
Well, Cunego has obviously been told he's got to follow Figueras today, and he's not letting the side down. Here we go again. Figueras has advertised all the way up this mountain. He wants to win the stage. He's in a high position overall. Marked out of it. Tonkov gets himself back on the front. Now he's followed by Simoni. Then Garzelli. Figueras drops back in. We're at 3 kilometres now. Cunego, this revelation of the year in Italy certainly, and in the world I think also, is still looking, he always looks under pressure the way he rides, and his mouth wide open, but he's got so much talent.
He might look under pressure, but he's always there. He is ever present. And the way he's riding as the ultimate team domestique. He's riding a protective race for his own team leader. Every time there's an acceleration, he goes with it, but he never contributes to the success of the breakaway, because he is the teammate of the leader, Gilberto Simoni. Simoni there in 3rd place. Tonkov just sitting at the front here, free to ride the tempo that he wants, because he's not trying to conserve any energy at all in the Giro. He's not been brought here to win the race. He's been brought here to look after Stefano Garzelli. Look at Emanuele Sella on the left-hand side there, bouncing all over that bike. He's only 22 years of age, you know. He's a very young bike rider.
So as he now gets to grips with things, only a professional since the start of this year, certainly established himself as a rider to watch. We've got a 22-year-old Cunego sitting right on his back wheel there. 2 of the futures of the sport in Italy, I think. Although Sella himself is still to establish himself as a winner. But look at the turn of effort here, and this has got to be to try and help his team leader, Figueras. Well, Figueras has got to be impressed by this effort.
But look who's on his wheel. Damiano Cunego, just sitting there so far. Every time. Every time something goes, Cunego is there. He's bouncing around from left to right, just going with all of the accelerations. In the back of his mind, just thinking about protecting the position of his leader, Gilberto Simoni, who's never looked under any pressure at all. Stefano Garzelli is still there, but I think under a bit of pressure, because he does not really look all that comfortable. Vladimir Belli on the left-hand side. He's one of those riders who is always present as well, and I think we will always remember him as being the man who was ejected from the Giro d'Italia for punching somebody on the nose when he was lying in 3rd place in the overall classification.
That's right, the Simoni hooligans got a little bit out of control, and poor old Belli unleashed his wrath and was out. And at the time, I think he was lying 3rd overall. That was the end of him. Very sad, really. And Simoni should have told his hooligans to calm it down as well, because they were crowding out a little bit on the mountain that day. But Sella is incredible just now, and I think really I can't see the point of him setting a pace like this just at the minute.
No, I think because he's actually making too fast a pace to allow his own teammate there in 5th position, Figueras, to actually get off the front and launch an attack. Those people were getting just a little bit too close for my liking there. The Tifosi go absolutely wild towards the end of a race here.
But they flew round that corner. I mean, they're going uphill. They almost overshot the corner. And Sella just gritting his teeth. The adrenaline flow in him is so high, I don't think he cares where anybody is just now. But look at the face being pulled by Garzelli. It gives you some idea of the effort being made by Emanuele Sella. Cunego looking cool. Here goes Simoni now. Rapid acceleration by Simoni. Now that's what we expected, a chance to improve. A little bit of a slow reaction there coming from Garzelli, but he's come and he's got the wheel. And then Cunego, the big 3 are on the move.
Well, Stefano Garzelli obviously has the legs this afternoon. His team did the majority of the work in the last 25 kilometres before we came to the start of the climb to pull back the early morning 6-man breakaway. And the responsibility now is on the shoulders of Stefano Garzelli to get himself the win. That indication that Gilberto Simoni was pulled back there is an indication that maybe he's not as strong as he was last year, although this climb is not quite the steepness that Gilberto Simoni likes. Look at the Tifosi on the right-hand side there, just coming alongside, trying to encourage everybody. Mazzolini, always present, always ready to come and work for the team.
Well, the last kilometre, and we will continue uphill here now, and Eddie Mazzolini is trying to launch Simoni and Cunego, the two big hitters on Seiko, up towards the line, because small bonuses there will help today, because quite a few riders have managed to master this pace. And one of the big surprises, having lost his pink jersey on a mountain today, Brad McGee is right in with this group.
There he is, just sitting at the back end of the group there. It's interesting to see Mazzolini just turning up the pace now with Gilberto Simoni in second position. Still in with a chance of the victory there is Stefano Garzelli, moving up into fourth place. Gonchar is there. All of the big names are here. The only man who's really missed out from the top end of the overall classification is David Rebellin.
That's right, and Rebellin tailed off 5 kilometers down the mountain and is losing time now. There is a very select group that's coming up the mountain just now, and also in there, we haven't mentioned him too much, is Popovic and also the ever-present Andrea Noe in this leading group. And the big surprise, I suppose, is Emanuel Sella, who has done so much work in this group.
So Eddie Mazzolini leading around the corner. We're down to around about 15 riders now. Second place is still Simoni. Cunego is still there in third. Popovic is very comfortably in this group. Dario Cioni is up there as well. This is Popovic coming around the outside now. He could very well be looking for the win.
Well, small bonuses could swing this race the other way, and Simoni could throw it away, but he's making a lot of pace here.
I think Simoni's going to try and lead it out for his teammate there, because in second position there you can see Damiano Cunego, and he has to be the man who's got the acceleration. He's had 6 wins so far this season.
That's right, and Garzelli, watch for Garzelli, a perfect finish for Garzelli this, as they come up towards the line now. This is Figueras again trying to go. There's Brad McGee gritting his teeth. He may have ambition, but I think we're going to see Damiano Cunego be the man of the day. If Cunego wins this, he will take the pink jersey, but it stays with Seiko. And he's got a big gap there, and it's Brad McGee over Pelazzotti, who's come out of nowhere. It's all too late. Cunego, win number 7 of the year. McGee, Pelazzotti, Figueras, Garzelli as they come over the line there. And that is going to see the pink jersey swing back to Damiano Cunego.
Just coming across there was Dario Cioni. And Eddie Mazzolini coming in now, an integral part of that team victory here this afternoon. But this climb has certainly caused some pretty serious gaps once again, and what a superbly timed sprint there. I do believe that Gilberto Simoni in the last kilometre, Phil, decided he wanted to try and lead out his own teammates. So good was the acceleration of Damiano Cunego in the last 150 metres.
Well, Cunego's certainly tasting all the leaders' jerseys, Paul. He's had the points. He's now got the King of the Mountains today, as well as a return to the pink jersey. He's having a terrific tour. This is his second tour. Remember, last year he was the youngest rider in the Giro d'Italia and on the Seiko team. There's the result, though. Cunego firing. Big surprise. Bradley McGee has produced the sprint of his life for second place there on the mountaintop. And Pelazzotti in the frame of Figueras as well.
Well, that's the amazing thing. If you look at that picture there is no sign at all of Bradley McGee. Big acceleration coming from Damiano Cunego, who gets the gap on everybody else, and I'm pretty sure that they will give him that gap. Then all of a sudden, creeping in from nowhere at all, comes Bradley McGee, who's had the pink jersey on 2 occasions here, and he comes almost up to the back wheel of the Italian revelation of the year, Cunego, to get himself second place. And I think Brad McGee will be very pleased with that.
I think he'd be absolutely delighted with it, because here's a man who won the prologue. He lost the pink jersey, got it back. He hasn't got the pink jersey back, nor is he likely to get it again. But he now might be thinking of a high finish in the overall classification, which would be a great tour for him. Here we go. This is the daily bottle opening ceremony that sometimes goes a little bit wrong, but Damiano Cunego is having an incredible Giro to back up an incredible season. Win number 7 this year for him. And I think overall it is confirmed. Cunego, 10 seconds to the good over Simoni. The all-important time bonuses has made the difference. Pelazzotti is now up into 3rd place, and kisses all round now. And Cunego keeping their grip on this race. Age of the Giro d'Italia from Gifoni Vallepiana to Policoro. And it'll be without David Rebellin, because after being dropped yesterday, he's decided not to start today. So the field continues to shrink here. New leader as well in Damiano Cunego, taking the pink jersey away from his team captain, Gilberto Simoni. And Simoni, for me, did appear to work to get Cunego into the hot seat yesterday. Rejoining the action now. Routine stays this one as far as the finish goes. Shouldn't see a change overall, because it's a battle of the sprinters.
On front, the blue and white jerseys of Fassa Bortolo, as it is on every one of these flat stages. There is the Ciclamina jersey on the shoulders of Alessandro Petacchi. Moving on to his wheel there, you can see in the middle of that group there, Giovanni Lombardi looking to try and get himself a victory there if he can. And also moving up pretty close to the front end of the main field there is Freddie Rodriguez.
Well, I don't know if you saw that, Paul, but Nasdaq's just at the bottom of our picture there, almost clipped Lombardi's back wheel there. And he's the man involved in the crash that took out his teammate Anders Oj, well, nearly a week ago now. Field here now, still using their lead-out men, one after another. Petacchi looking for win number 4. And it's going to be a tough call for him, but this is a sprinter's finish to perfection. A little bit of a wide swing by one rider there, but they're lining up for the front again now. And it is still Petacchi in a lovely position, but somebody's taken a flyer off the right.
Well, somebody's tried to surprise everybody there. There's Magnus Backstedt swinging across. It looks as if he hasn't got the legs to stay at the front end of the main field. Still, we've got Marco Vello on the front end of the group. In front of him is Zongarato. They're trying to lead out the sprint for their big man on the front, Alessandro Petacchi. And this is Graziano Gaspare, who's got a slight advantage, but it's not going to last very long.
No, he's gone too soon. He's not a bad sprinter either, but he's gone too soon this time, and they haven't panicked. They put him back into place. That's Petacchi in the Ciclamino points leaders jersey in 3rd place, and he's in brilliant position now. As the gain rider's trying to take him on, it looks like Crescendo d'Amore is looking over his shoulder, gone a little bit too soon, wants to tuck back into the line, and he finds a place, or does he? In fact, he thinks no, he's going to swing away from it there.
There's Freddie Rodriguez there, number 16 on the wheel, just in front of his teammate Crescenzo d'Amore, but Freddie Rodriguez is right on the wheel of Alessandro Petacchi, and Freddie over the last couple of days, you know, has been knocking at the door to possibly get himself a top 3 place on one of these stage finishes.
But despite his great riding in the mountains, Brad McGee is right in amongst it again. A lot of pushing and shoving going on here now as they try to line up for the finish. Olaf Pollock, again looking for a win, is in the mix.
Well, that's Barajo in the orange jersey there. He's been to the front of these sprints on a couple of occasions. He got himself in the top 3 just the other day. Now down to Marco Vello and Alessandro Petacchi. Petacchi is going to be led out here by his teammate, who's got a lot of work to do because he's still 500 meters from the line.
Half a kilometre to go, and Petacchi has put himself again in a good position here. Sharp right-hand bend, he goes round in 2nd place. Pollock has got the lead out once more from Petacchi. He's 3rd wheel around the corner. Remember, he's got a hatful of 2nd places behind Petacchi, and the win would be nice. Now, the final lead out here, as long as possible. Now, Pollock goes on the left. Petacchi reacts rather late, looks across and sees him. He's carrying Robbie McEwen, I think, as well, as they head up towards the line. Oh, Petacchi gets it. 4 wins in the Giro d'Italia, and right on his line there, I'm not too sure who that was on the line there, but certainly Pollock, I think, crossed that in 3rd place.
You can't take anything away, though, from Alessandro Petacchi. The team are completely dedicated to this man, and I think he's going to set himself a very similar score to the one that he had last year. Now, look how easily he cruised across the line here. In fact, the man going across the line in 2nd place there was Thomas Weidkus, the sprinter from Landbau Credit, in 2nd place, and Olaf Pollock faded just a little bit towards the end to get 3rd. And Robbie McEwen, who I thought was very closely in there, doesn't appear to be in the result at all.
Well, that is McEwen in 2nd place, clearly. But maybe the judges are complaining because there's Weidkus on the right-hand side of the road. Let's have a look at the sprint and see if we can see anything wrong with it, but I didn't see anything wrong with it. This is a perfect lead out again, and then comes McEwen, ripping out of the centre of the field there, trying to get onto the wheel, following Petacchi all over the road and getting absolutely nowhere again. And there was a complaint about McEwen, and it came there from Olaf Pollock, who is 4th, and McEwen officially there in 2nd, but I can tell you now that the judges have declassed McEwen to the back of the race, and everybody will move up 1 place behind Alessandro Petacchi. There's the situation overall. No change, of course. The bonus is not going to affect the overall lead of the climbers. Cunego keeping his 10 seconds over Simoni and 28 over Pelazzotti. Everything going the way of Seiko since day 2 of this race, when they got into the leader's jersey with Cunego. Then it went to Simoni, and now it's back with Cunego. Moving on then to the 9th stage now, as the riders continue their journey down the leg of Italy from Policoro to Caravigno, 142 kilometers, 88 miles. And again, another good day this in the making for perhaps Alessandro Petacchi.
Well, once again, all the leaders now are taking a bit of a back seat as we head into what looks as if it's going to be another ideal scenario for Fassa Bortolo. A big line out on the front end of the main field for the blue and white. This team really has changed in this Giro d'Italia from being a team that used to ride for high places in the overall classification to a team that was very resemblant of the team of Mario Cipollini in previous years. But now you just change that name and you slot in the name of Alessandro Petacchi. Now this is perfect organisation on the front.
And sadly, only Freddy Gonzalez has gone out today with that crash earlier on, and that is sad because the former King of the Mountains of the Giro d'Italia out today, as the riders now continue to look 3 times around this 4.3 kilometre finishing circuit. 1 lap to go now, and the peloton more or less all together. Just 1 or 2 riders are straggling along. It's got to be surely another day, and Petacchi is getting used to his winning ways in this race now. Here comes an early counter move. This is to be expected now. It's the only way they're going to beat. This will be Gabriel Colombo here, trying to slip away, causing a bit of a ripple in the training system of Fassa Bortolo. Colombo here, just holding on at the front, but there we are. Fassa Bortolo bringing the race back together. This is the remnants of the crash here, and is that...
Stradza, who went down very, very hard indeed just a few moments ago. He was in fact the leader of the Inter-Giro competition, a competition that he's won in the past.
He has.
And as we're on a finishing circuit here, just over to the left-hand side, that is a group of riders who have actually been lapped as we now come down towards the last lap of this very difficult finishing circuit, and in complete and utter control on the front end of the main field. It is in fact still Fassa Bortolo, while these riders have still got to try and get themselves to the finish. Those are the lap riders. Again, a lot of groups at the back, and mainly these groups were streamed off because of the crashes that happened with around about 25 kilometres to go.
And they're over 4 kilometres behind the sprinting bunch here, which means they're set to lose about 9 or 10 minutes on the field. I don't think they'll have to ride the last lap. Judges will estimate the time taken and dock them that sort of a time based on the speed of the peloton around the finishing circuit. But right now the sprinters again are preoccupied here, and they're seeing here again a classic lead out by Fassa Bortolo. Petacchi is firing on all guns as they come off that final win, and there he is now, getting quite a lead in the points competition. His eternal shadow, Robin McEwen, sitting tucked in there. And that's Vaitkus as well, who's also sprinting extremely well. They are trying to just line themselves up for a similar result to yesterday. McEwen would like to keep his place this time.
Great organisation. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4 riders from Fassa Bortolo on the front, then Alessandro Petacchi. The way to win this sprint is to peel off over the last 3 kilometres and end up with one last man to catapult the leader into victory in the last 500 metres. That's the way it works in the handbook, and that's the way they've got it right on a number of occasions so far. There's Pollack moving up there, trying to get himself to the back wheel of Robbie McEwen. A lot of argy-bargy going on in the middle there as everybody just tries to stay near the front. The reason they're so close to the front is they want to be in 7th or 8th position, but they don't want to hit the front until the last possible moment.
Well, that was Volodymyr Gustov doing the last big turn there for Fassa Bortolo and swinging out of the way. They've still got some pace in this line out for Fassa Bortolo, and Petacchi sitting in the slipstream. He's 3 men down now, but it's getting a bit crowded in the office today as the riders moving up to try and hold Petacchi against that railing. Vaitkus has come over the top of him as they go around that left-hander.
Nauders is up there, so is Freddy Rodriguez, and so is Jans Verrada there in the dark blue and pink jersey of the Lampre squad. Still controlled by these riders on the front now. It looks very much as if the man taking over for Fassa Bortolo is Fabio Sacchi on the front there. The last man to lead out the sprint towards the very end is usually Marco Velo, and he will be in 3rd position, just in front of Alessandro Petacchi. I think that's Robbie McEwen still there in 5th, looking nice and comfortable, just following the slipstream. All he's doing is looking at the wheel of Alessandro Petacchi and waiting for the moment to try and surprise Alessandro Petacchi, because the only way to beat Alessandro Petacchi, I think, is to get the jump on him early.
It's no good trying to come off his wheel. The man, when he sees that finishing banner, just like Mario Cipollini used to be, it's hard to displace him at the front. And there he is lying 3rd now, and right behind him too is Robbie McEwen, still looking for a 2nd stage win here before he says goodbye. He'll only be with us for another couple of days now, and then he'll prepare for the Tour de France. And this is the big lead out. It's perfect.
Right behind McEwen there is Freddie Rodriguez, and right behind him is Andrus Naudus, the big rider who a couple of years ago was a big enemy to Mario Cipollini. The last man swinging off there, very precariously getting round that corner. It leaves now just Marco Vello and Alessandro Petacchi.
He's about to launch Petacchi at the finishing line again. And he's had the 4 wins so far now. This, surely he's thinking of number 5. McEwen is kicking back there. He's waiting for the move by Petacchi. And what about Freddie Rodriguez, who's sitting well? In fact, Fred's going to go. He's going to try and get the jump on Petacchi. And Gonzalez. Freddie Rodriguez has gone on the right here now. He may have read it just perfect here. He's moved off his line a bit, but he's holding on as Petacchi now fires. And I think Rodriguez gets it on the line. Well, he did exactly what you said, Paul. He went before Petacchi made the move. I don't think that move across the road will worry the judges too much. That was a big win for Fred.
A very big win. He did exactly what everyone else has been trying to do. And look, and this is where it starts here. Freddie Rodriguez is waiting for Alessandro Petacchi to start the sprint, but before Petacchi actually opens up the gas, Freddie gets the jump, and this will have rattled the nerves a little bit of Alessandro Petacchi, because a sprinter doesn't like to see somebody else coming by quite that quickly. And the moment that Petacchi starts to accelerate, you see him slowly but surely creeping up on Freddie, but Freddie actually got the jump first and got himself his first ever win at the Giro d'Italia. And this is a man who for the last couple of years has promised to us to be a great sprinter. Remember a few years ago when he used to lead out Tom Steels? He's got the speed, and today he's got the scalp he was looking for, Alessandro Petacchi's.
Well, that's a terrific result for Fred Rodriguez, because he kept that big gear rolling right to the line. He's delighted with that, and well he might be. Huge result. And when you saw that shot from the helicopter quite clearly, when he moved off his line, he was already a full length clear of Alessandro Petacchi, so it won't worry the judges at all. Overall, again, with the sprinters taking command, that the situation remains the same. The 10-second gap and the 28-second gap to Cunego, to Simeone, here he is, and of course to Pelazzotti. So another day in pink, and the race goes on. As we move on now to the 10th stage, the 11th day of the Giro d'Italia, as we continue to journey down the leg of Italy, moving on from Porto Sant'Elpidio to Ascoli Piceno. Almost a day off this, just on 87 miles of racing, 146 kilometers. With a third category climb in the middle of the stage today, and then again a chance for the sprinters perhaps before the mountains will finally catch up with the riders in that final week. And by the way, Massimo Strazza lost 9 minutes yesterday, but because of his injuries, it hasn't started. And neither, surprisingly, is Thomas Veitkus, who has been riding so well, but I believe he's now joining his team in preparation for the upcoming Olympic Games.
Well, that's the start of the day's classification in the Intergiro competition, Massimo Strazza, but as he isn't starting, there'll be a change in that competition later on in the day. We're at the southernmost tip of Italy now, and the riders of Phil are going to start to tilt up towards the north, and that's where the race is really going to be decided once we get into the Dolomites.
So Beckman wears the green jersey as leader of the King of the Mountains, which as you saw there he is not. It's still Cunego, but Cunego continues in the leader's pink jersey. This is an attack again by McGee. This great pursuiter at 3 kilometers to go here. It hasn't been a great day for attacking riding. We've had 8 riders clear for most of it. They all got caught 13 kilometers out from the finish. And McGee now, reminding me so much of Vyacheslav Ekimov, is trying to ride the field off his wheel.
It's a very difficult thing to do when the main field is charging along at 60 kilometers an hour. If any man could have done it, it would have been Brad McGee. But Gruppo Compacto means that it is all very much back together. Alessio on the right-hand side there, trying to lead out their man, Magnus Backstedt. And also trying to lead out Jans Verada is the Lampre squad. Verada has been very consistent over the last few days, and with the weather starting to become just that little bit more clement, he's probably thinking about the possibility of a win for himself.
Well, not even the rest day yesterday was enough to help Strazza recover from that crash, sadly. As the riders now get stuck into the saddle, as we move into the second part of the Giro d'Italia, it looks like we're going to be where we left off here, a battle of the sprinters, and a chance for Petacchi to notch yet another victory at 2 kilometers out. There he is, building quite a lead in the points competition.
Not quite as organised as he has been over the last couple of days. He's swapped just a little bit. His team don't seem to have the complete and utter control over the front end of the main field. As you can see, everybody here, they're actually charging here to try and get themselves into a corner and try and stretch out the main field to make sure that Alessandro Petacchi is not confused in this final approach to the line.
Well, these sharp bends taken in high speed, always a little bit heart-stopping, but they seem to come off the corners pretty safely as they line up towards the finish now. A familiar scene here. Fassa Bortola used to be the team of Mario Cipollini, but the new boys on the block are delivering Petacchi every time to the line. They've only failed on one occasion so far in this Giro to put him in the right place, and he wasn't in the sprint. At 1,200 metres now, it is looking extremely good.
Well, they've got a great organisation. They really have become a slick, drilled squad. Look at that arm swing there. That's the man on the front saying, I've done it, I've got no more left. Keep the pace high, keep it up at 60 kilometres an hour, and that's what they have to do. And then finally, Marco Vello will switch off and pull over with around about 350 metres to go. And they're now down to just two men. Alessandro Petacchi is there in third position, but look at the battle for Alessandro Petacchi's rear wheel. Freddie Rodriguez is up there, battling away there. It looks as if he's battling out with Marco Zanotti.
He is indeed, and that also there is Yusuf, I think, trying to get in on the act. As now they are once more coming up towards the line. Petacchi is in perfect position here. Giovanni Lombardi has slipped back to fifth there. He looked over to his right shoulder, lost a couple of places. That has cost him. The final lead out now to launch Petacchi at the finish, and a possible win number 5 here. Nasdux is going to try and make a run a little bit earlier. Nasdaq's coming out of the late afternoon sun to the left of our picture, but look at the speed of Alessandro Petacchi. Marco Zanotti goes second, and no one, frankly, was ever in that finish except Petacchi.
He really is unbelievable. He looks now just exactly like Mario Cipollini did a couple of years ago. They're putting him in the right position every time. The only man who's really been able to outfox him has been Freddie Rodriguez, and that applause, I think, coming from Alessandro Petacchi as he crosses the line, I think has got to be to his own teammates, because they have been splendid so far in the Giro d'Italia. They're setting him up to perfection every time, and I really don't see anybody who can beat this man.
He just applauds the crowd. Thanks for coming and seeing me win at yet another stage of the Giro d'Italia, win number 5 now out of a possible 10 finishes. And this one was his most convincing. Zanotti just could not get out of his slipstream as he kept clear to the line.
I think that's the important thing. He's just got such incredible speed. He accelerates all the way up to the line, just as Mario Cipollini did. The only way to beat him is to try and get the jump on him early, but the team do not allow anybody to do that. There's confirmation. Naudor's getting a very good third place. Magnus Backstedt handily up there in fourth place, and Jans Verrado wasn't too far away in sixth. But there's the man of the moment. There's the sprinter of the Giro d'Italia this year, Alessandro Petacchi.
Salutes the crowd, everybody of course in the same time, which will mean there's no change overall yet again. Damiano Cunego, becoming something of a hero now, has resumed where he left off before the rest day, and now continues with the same gaps over the rest of the field since the mountain climbs. So he gets another pink jersey, Damiano Cunego. Well, the world was saddened by the death in February this year of the great rider Marco Pantani, who had a love-hate relationship with the sport. Let's just sit back for a moment and remind ourselves of this great climber. Marco Pantani. The Giro d'Italia moves on now. It's stage 11 as we go from Porto Sant'Elpidio to Cesena. 228 kilometers, a long way, about 143 miles. There's 3 mountains along the route today. They shouldn't be too decisive, but let's pick up the action again with a young rider, Emanuel Sella, out on the attack and in the lead for a long way today.
This is the young man who just a couple of days ago was setting up the possible stage victory for his own team leader, Giuliano Figueras. He is a very young rider. He was very prolific a couple of years ago in the Baby Giro, the Giro for amateur cyclists, and as you can see here, he's decided not to wait at all for anybody else, and he's going to go out on the attack.
Well, he's 16th overall, 2 minutes and 34 seconds behind, so he is something of a danger if he can climb with the mountain still ahead. And now he's making the decision to give it his best shot here.
He's 1 minute and 40 seconds over the front end of the main field. And as you can see, the main field is under a certain amount of stress. These are very difficult racing roads here. There are no big roads at all in this part of Italy. And you can see they're very winding. The road surface also is very difficult and not conducive to high speed. And the fact that these roads are so narrow is making it very difficult for any of the teams to organise the chase on the front end of the main field. I don't think anybody will expect to see Emanuel Sella survive. As you can see, there is Damiano Cunego. He's got his teammates on the front end of the peloton. And the way that he is riding there, Phil, I have to say that Cunego is looking more and more seriously like a leader of this Giro.
Well, he's found his feet today. We've had a long breakaway of 20 riders. They've been swept up now, and in a new breakaway that's gone, Sella's been part of this breakaway and has tried desperately to split them up. There's the lineup of the breakaway, Bo Hamburger in there as well, getting away from the rest of them. Now, as he starts to climb here, he is a good climber. I think we've seen that the other day when he was riding so strongly in the favour of Figueras. I think probably did too much work there, considering, but that's probably inexperience. But now look at this magnificent crowd here, and they're always quite vociferous when they see an Italian, no matter how young he is, in the lead. 23 years of age, this man. First Giro d'Italia, and he's going to soak up the atmosphere here.
Well, I'm not sure if he's soaking up the atmosphere, because this is a real nasty climb. A lot of riders have put very low gears on for this climb here this afternoon, and many of them have put on sprockets of around about 25 teeth. And you can see, having been away for quite a long time, you can see just how difficult this is turning out to be for this young man. It's only being given a second category rating, this climb, but I have to say, I think it's a lot worse than that.
It's a real struggle, and once he gets to the top, he's 15 kilometres to run. It's not all downhill to the finish, and he's getting away now from everybody else. Villa, Lobato, Fertinani, Bertagnoli are the men immediately behind him. But the gap is still significant. There's no pink jersey at the moment in the offering, but that doesn't matter. If he can get away, boy, would he be happy with a stage win. It would be a first win for him too as a pro. There's the remnants of the breakaway, and they're struggling a little bit now.
Well, Oscar Masson is in this group here. You can see with the Vinny Calderola colours on his jersey. There at the front end of the main field, you can see the teammates of their leader sitting on the front end of the main field, and you get a chance to see just how difficult this race is this afternoon. But this man at the front, Testa della Corsa, is still holding on to around about a 35-second advantage over the group that he was with, and around about a minute and a half over the main field.
Well, a massive crowd here as they climb up the Sorivoli. And it is a really steep climb. That guy is hardly turning those pedals just now. Final kick, he's guessing that just around the corner is the top, and it is. So he goes over the top of the climb. He also won the previous climb with 32 kilometres to go. But more importantly now, he's only 15 away from the finish.
You can almost feel the sigh of relief that he's exhaling there as he goes over the King of the Mountains point, and it starts to get just that little bit easier. This is Steve Zampieri at the back. They had a very strong position in this breakaway, Vinny Calderola, because they had Steve Zampieri and Oscar Masson, and I would expect that they thought they had a very good chance of winning. You see how steep this climb is. It's actually caught one or two of the team cars by surprise as we're coming up the steeper part with the main field, and it looked very much as if it was Popovic on the front end of the group.
Well, how fitting it would be in respect of Il Pirata, Marco Pantani, if this man, clearly a good climber, was to win in the Pirates' hometown of Cesena. That would be a story in itself, but he's still a way to go before he can celebrate.
Well, certainly Marco Pantani would appreciate a move like this, a very brave move. For a climber to win on a fairly easy stage like this is always a great thing, and that's exactly what he's looking to do. In fact, that wasn't the top of the climb just a few moments ago. This is the top of the climb. We're still around about 100 meters to go, but certainly it was very, very steep. Now, depending on how much advantage he's got here, it will tell us whether or not he's got a good chance of surviving. Now, I actually think he's stretching his advantage out over the remnants of that breakaway.
Well, I hope you're right, as the green flag this time does indicate the top of the King of the Mountains. So he's now got 15 kilometres left to ride. This is a man who's never won a race as a professional. He's been a pro since the start of the year. He had 10 wins last year, and he is showing all the signs of becoming a really good pro bike rider in the years that lie ahead. Here's the main field. Well,
the main field, they're picking up one or two riders who were in that early breakaway, and you can see them actually going backwards through the group. And in fact, the remnants of that break has slimmed down to quite a few riders here as we start to pull forward. This is Zampieri and Oscar Masson. They were in that early breakaway, which is a fairly large early breakaway, and these men now are down to just 4 survivors chasing the lone leader, Emanuele Sella, a name that we've only really uttered once so far in the Giro d'Italia, and probably only twice this year.
Well, Fabian Weckmann is riding a very clever race. We haven't seen much of him, but in fact he was in this early breakaway. He picked up the first mountain climb at San Marino, and that's enough to have given him a return now of the Green Mountain Leaders jersey. So he's taken that off Damiano Cunego today as they continue to sprint out the points at the top. Weckmann also got second over the previous climb, but he's no longer with the lead group.
1 minute and 11 seconds, now that's with 15 kilometers to go. So it's looking as if Emanuele Sella's got a reasonable chance, but it just depends how much the main field really want to kick up their advantage. And you know, they're not that very far behind. And look at this, Bradley McGee moving forward here. Phil, Bradley McGee is riding higher and higher in the overall classification. A completely changed rider this year, because in the past, Bradley McGee, and I don't think he'd be upset for me saying this, has never really been a great climber.
No, he's been a pursuiter and a world champion at the pursuit, but he's now showing us what a great all-round bike rider he is. He's just had that one-off day. Sorry about a little bit about the picture breakup. That's the camera correcting the loss of pictures because of the atmospherics, but don't worry about it as the race continues. And that field is splitting up at the back.
Well, for a second category climb, that has actually split the field quite dramatically, and that was not because of the pressure of the climbers on the front of that climb. It was in fact the pressure of Bradley McGee at the front end of the main field that's put a lot of riders into difficulty, and we could, on what we expected to see this as a transitional stage, see a change in the overall classification.
Well, right now it'd be nice to get a time check here on this man, but look at the way he's riding this descent. He's crossing apex to apex. He's not going to go 1 meter further than he has to on this stage. Remember, it's the long stage today, 228 kilometers. The riders chasing a 15 to go. And that's the situation over the mountain we've just seen. Zampieri and Labato were second and third, original breakaway members, but they couldn't hold on to Sella, who's just kept on going. And he's really riding like a man possessed just now. I think that down there, Zampieri also still making the pace.
Well, it's going to be a very difficult ride. It's not a downhill ride either to the finish. It's very undulating in this part of the world, and very difficult to keep a rhythm going. But it's also to the advantage of the attacker right now, because these are difficult roads to actually organize a chase on. And it's not really important for Team Saeco to chase down small breakaways like this. They have to think about the big picture. They've got to think about the big mountain stages to come, because as always in the Giro d'Italia, it's in the last few days that this race can be decided.
Yeah, you're right. And there's no reason at the moment to chase down younger Sella here. A stage win for him would be fantastic. He certainly will improve as well, because he's only 16th overall just now, 2.5 minutes behind the race lead. But I don't think Simone, Cunego or Saeco are going to over worry about a move like this. In fact, it's probably going to be good for them.
This looks to me as if this in fact is
Garzelli?
Garzelli, who's gone off the back on that climb. He must have been caught out by the steepness of the climb. The climb has caused a certain selection in that main field and split it fairly dramatically, and Garzelli is being caught out, and now he's trying to claw his way back into the race.
Well, you're right about one thing, because we've heard nothing at all. He's with Sven Montgomery of Gerolsteiner, and he'll be a good man to pace him back. But Montgomery also is a very good climber, and he's been caught out as well.
There he is, he's made it, 181.
Yep, Montgomery in just in front of him there, so they've got themselves onto the tail again. I wonder if Simone knows, or even Cunego in the pink jersey, what has been happening. Popovic is still in this group as well.
It's Simone really putting the hammer down at the front end of the main field there. He's the one trying to hurt everyone. This is Juan Manuel Garratti, pretty good rider, the Spanish rider on the Lampre squad. He's got a bit of an advantage. I really don't know, Phil, why Gilberto Simone is riding like this on the front end of the group. He doesn't need to. He's the leader of the team. He was the dedicated leader of the team before they came to the Giro d'Italia. But I tell you what, today has shown that for the first time since we started the Giro, Team Seiko are under pressure because they've not got very many men in that group.
It's a good point, but they are under control. They're not going to concern themselves. It might in fact go down in the favour now of Emmanuel Sella, because they will want to consolidate where they are rather than worry about using up energy to chase him down. I'd just like a time check at the moment to see exactly where he is, but he looks as though he's still strong. These are great racing roads for a breakaway. They're narrow, they're twisty, you stay out of touch. It's 10k to go. He's chipped off 5 kilometres, and we'll see if we get a time check at that banner when the peloton get through. But he is riding well clear of the field now. The breakaway that was with him are not going to pull him back. They're still clear of the field, but they're not organised now.
Well, these are survivors of that early morning breakaway. On the back there you can see Marlon Perez. We saw him very early on in the year in the Tour de Langkawi, and one or two riders have managed to scramble back on this descent, because this group now from 4 riders has swelled up to 6. And I've got an unofficial check on these chasing riders here at around about the 1 minute mark, and the main field are not too far behind them.
Well, this less than 6 miles, 10 kilometres to go to the finish. 1 minute is very much a catchable gap, but I'm not sure these boys have got the legs now to get across it. If it's going to be caught, I think it'll have to come from the peloton. There's Perez sitting there at the back. As Paul says, we saw him in action with great success in the Tour de Langkawi in Malaysia this year. Seiko getting themselves organised now. 2 riders on the front with the pink jersey there just behind of Damiano Cunego.
This is Christian Moreni. He's actually, I think, coming across the gap. He was in the main field just a few moments ago. He's a man we've seen in the past, a very aggressive bike rider, but this is a tall order to ride across to the chasing group and then to try and catch the lone leader. Now here we go. I actually make that 1 minute and 20 seconds, so that's quite a big gap for the leader over this chasing group.
Well, surely that's got to be a winning gap now. Moreni trying to get across. He can't be very far behind. This is the leader now in the greatest moment of his very young professional cycling career. We only get glimpses of him, but he doesn't look like a weakening rider to me. He's absolutely flying. Seiko are getting themselves completely organised here to control this very select group of riders. They go under 10 to go. What you got?
150. So it should be a win for the man at the front. And it really is. I think the fact that Seiko were put under pressure, they're now starting to rally. They've got a lot of riders who I think have recovered after that very steep climb. But it's too late to try and pull back the stage victory here this afternoon. And this man, Phil, the way he is going down this climb is absolutely phenomenal.
Well, this race has paid homage to a great cyclist no longer with us in Marco Pantani, and this rider, Sella, now racing to the hometown of Marco, and he's doing it in what I would say is a cheeky move, and one we would have expected from Il Parata himself.
Absolutely, he's really taking these corners flat out, not taking any precautions at all. And there is confirmation. It's 1 minute and 27 seconds back to the chasing group. So in fact,
they're closing.
They're closing, but not by very much. But what is happening is, in fact, this group here, with the leaders of the race, Gilberto Simone, Damiano Cunego, they are actually also catching the chasers.
Well, this is Leonardo Bertagnoli and Andrea Tonti, who are the pace setters. They've been fantastic domestiques on the Team Seiko this year, and they're always at the front for as long as they can stay there to keep the pressure off their top 2 leaders. And I think that's the way this Tour is going now. They have 2 men in Seiko who could win this race as long as they don't start infighting, and there's been no signs of that yet. This little group, which has been away for a long time, once Sella was with them, he got away from them on the climb of the Rubicone with 32 kilometres to go, and he might stay away, but oh dear, we're panning back, and that's never normally a good sign, but we've broken away, so we'll never know the answer. Back up with the leader now. He's still clear by about a minute and 15. Moreni has come across the gap. That's why we were panning back. Now this might be trouble.
This is a good move. He's ridden away from the group of Gilberto Simoni and Damiano Cunego across to the group in between. This is the chase group made up of 6 riders. It's now swelling to 7. Now this might just give them the reinforcements to close down on that gap, which is a minute and 20 seconds to the lone leader. There's McGee just sitting on the wheel of Damiano Cunego. McGee is having a very good Giro d'Italia halfway through.
He's marking everybody. He's looking for a high general classification finish to prove a point that he can ride high in the overall and not just win prologues. He's now got quite a distinction, a prologue winner in the Tour de France and a prologue winner in the Giro d'Italia. Worn both leaders' jerseys now in those 2 great races. He'll have to go to Spain and see what he can do there next. But this is a great moment here. Now what does this say? It should say, I think, 7 kilometers to go for the leader. And again, the movement is on here because this is Garate.
Garate too, trying to get across the gap. He's a pretty good rider. I've seen him ride some very aggressive races like the Vuelta a España. What he's trying to do here is get across this gap as well, and he's not too far off. Although once you've made the move, like the man at the back there, Christian Moreni, it's very difficult because Moreni, as you can see, picking his way through. He came to the back of the group, recovered for a kilometre or so, and now he's going to try and whip up the pacemaking. He now knows that there's still 1 rider surviving off the front.
Emmanuel Sella, note the name, the way he's ridden today with the way he rode the other day in the mountains when he was just pacemaking for his team leader. It looks to me as though he could be a man for the future. But I don't think even in his wildest dreams he would have expected to have won a stage of the Giro d'Italia. It's still in doubt because the group is closing in. We're waiting for a confirmation of the time check, but it is coming down and he's still got a little way to go, but there's no sign of slowing in that pace at all. He broke away at around about 33 kilometers to go today on the climb of the penultimate climb of the Rubicone.
Well, I can't believe that because, in fact, he stretched the gap out to a minute and 34. It came down to 1:27, and there is Garate. He's almost across. Now, that would be good news for Christian Moreni because these 2 riders will be just that little bit fresher than the other riders in the group. The other riders in the group, the 6 other riders, are survivors of the early morning breakaway, and the gas is certainly going to be going out of their tanks.
Well, we're getting into the streets here of Cesena. We're just looking for another kilometre checkpoint, but he can't be that far away from the line, and the gap is going in his favour at the moment. Massive crowd here. We're getting into the hot country of Marco Pantani now, and I'm sure we'll see plenty of banners about that as we get towards the finish. 5 to go. 3 miles, still an awful long way when you're under pressure at the limit of your ability for the day, but it's still going his way. He's not so sure. He's still checking over his shoulder.
Well, this is a nasty little climb just in the outskirts of town, and in the main field, if it had been a big group coming in here, this would have been an ideal launch pad. Once Emmanuel Sella has got himself over there, he will feel just that little bit more comfortable. This is Perez on the front. 6 riders now have been joined by Christian Moreni, and I think fairly shortly they're going to get joined by Juan Miguel Garate as well.
Well, this is, don't forget, the remnants of a breakaway which established itself at around about 60 kilometres in today.
Here's Garate's teammate, in fact, has dropped off the back to pace him up. So now we're looking at 8 men, and pulling back there, you can see the main field, and the main field, the Gruppo Maglia Rosa, are actually not too far off the back of that chase group.
Well, we didn't stay long enough with that shot, actually, but it looked to me as though there were some riders just ahead of the main pack that are either going back from the breakaway or it is the main pack beginning to hitch up with this breakaway. They're making a bit of a meal of joining on here. Now, it's not that long ago since Sella raced through this very same point. The Lampre pair need to get on, and Garate and, of course, Moreni by now should have recovered. They need the extra strength.
Well, that was Francisco Villa there who just dropped back to pace on his teammate Garate. The group now is up to 8 riders, but they're still quite a long way behind, hovering around the 1.5 minute mark, and I don't really believe that they've got very much chance of pulling back the lone leader because he certainly didn't look like a man under pressure. He still had a very good energetic pedalling action as he's now in the outskirts of town.
Ahead. But they've just gone on the 5, he's just gone past the 4. 1 kilometre must give him a lead of around a minute and a half.
That's it, and he's into the outskirts of town now, and he will be starting to feel just that little bit more confident. The information will be coming to him that he's got that advantage. He now has just got to try and keep this rhythm that he's had over the last 30 kilometers or so, and they will not see him before the finish, and he will get the first ever professional victory of his career.
Mind you, just seeing that, it looks to me as though the peloton led by Seiko are no more than 30 seconds behind the chasers and the remnants of the breakaway. So they're not quite so safe right now. Here's Moreni gone to the front now with Juan Manuel Garate. The two newcomers who are in the peloton have crossed to the gap and know that they've got to take up the reins of that chase now. Now, unfortunately, if you're going to come to the hometown of Marco Pantani, you'll always find a little hill before the finish, and this is going to hurt him.
It is, look at it, he's all over his machine, but he will take inspiration from that writing on the road there, Pantani. This is the hometown of Marco Pantani, who disappeared from us this year in the month of February on the eve of Valentine's Day, the 14th of Feb. And I think this young man will know that, because as a climber himself, he will be thinking about the possibility of winning in Pantani's hometown. He's only got about 500 meters to go. Once he gets over the summit, Phil, it is all over. He plunges down then into the finishing straight.
Well, the crowd all on one side of the barriers here to get a good sight of this young man. The first time he's ever led in the Giro d'Italia, and the first time, of course, he's ever ridden the race. And we're now on stage number 11, and it could be the big number for him. This group behind, not well organised anymore. There's a number of passengers here. They're very tired from a long breakaway. And there's only two riders in this group who should have comparatively fresh legs.
And that's one of them there, Christian Moreni, a wearer of the pink jersey and a winner of a stage of the Giro d'Italia a couple of years ago. Looking very comfortable this year. He's moved across to ride now for the Alessio Bianchi squad, and they're all trying to pull themselves back to this one man. I've got my fingers crossed right now. He shouldn't have any problems at all, but after a long breakaway like this, it's very strange what the body can do. He'll be waiting to try and get to the top of this climb, because then it certainly is 2 kilometers downhill, and they're still separated by that same 1 kilometer margin. But the main field now is also on the slopes of this final climb, being led by the new patron, I have to say, Damiano Cunego, looking very comfortable.
He is not afraid to show his jersey at the front of the peloton when he doesn't need to just now. In that chase group is Marlon Perez. We saw him earlier. He's the new leader, by the way, of the Inter-Giro competition today. He takes it over from Amore. Amore, yeah.
Now you can see the gap starting to come down. 1 minute and 10 seconds now. It was minute 30. He's lost 20 seconds, but he's not going to lose anything on the final 2 kilometers, which plunge down from the top of this climb into the finishing straight. I think the winner is going to be Emmanuel Sella, but the main field, oof, I tell you what, I might be making a wrong prediction there, because this is a nasty climb.
These legs have gone now, and it is touch and go. If they climb anything like as normal, they'll take half a minute off him here. And just to rub salt into the wounds, here come the cobblestones now, the dreaded pavé. But this rider surely isn't going to throw it away now.
I don't think so. He's just ticking away. He's almost reached the summit of the climb, and that will be unbelievable for him to see the road tip down in front of him, and he can pick it up from 20 kilometers an hour back up to 45 or 50, and then he's probably only got around about 2.5 minutes left to race.
Well, this is Garate here now. He's finding the strength of the rest of the breakaway, probably wanting a little bit. Moreni is the only other rider here, but Garate himself has done some good rides in this race. We're not going back far down the hill to find the main field there, led by the Maglia Rosa. They are very close.
And they are splitting up an awful lot as well, and it looks to me as if once again Stefano Garzelli is not having a great day. One of his teammates just dropping back there. I think in fact it was Tonkov who actually dropped back for him.
It was, and that's not good sign. Garzelli has not looked well at all in this race, I'll be honest. He hasn't looked like a man to challenge Saeco. What a great team they've been. 2 kilometers to go now, and he can settle into a flight down the mountain. He's got rid of the one thing that could have stopped him. There's the peloton over that stretch of cobblestones. That gap has to have come down pretty dramatically.
It has come down very dramatically, but not dramatically enough, because 1.4 kilometers is all that is left. And that's probably only going to take him 1.5 minutes, because he's probably cruising here at around about 60 kilometers an hour. These are the chasers. I think they've left it just that little bit too late.
I don't think the chasers could have done much about it. They'll be well to hang on for second place, because that peloton must be snapping on their heels right now if we could just get a relationship shot. This is the peloton containing the top boys from Seiko and the leaders of the race at 1 kilometre to go. Emmanuel Sella can sit back now and enjoy his finest moment as a young professional cyclist. And what a romantic stage to win here in Cesena, the home of Marco Pantani.
Well, he's not going to enjoy it, you know, until he gets to the last 300 or 400 metres and he can look over his shoulder and see that there is absolutely nobody there. This is the remnants of the breakaway. Look at it, he keeps looking over his shoulders. He probably can't believe it, but now he does. That
was to his team manager behind. He can't believe this. He had 10 wins last year as an amateur. That was enough to get him signed up as a pro with Panaria. And now he's got a win in the Giro d'Italia. His first professional win. What a way to start. They are closing in. He might even throw away a bit of time here just to enjoy the moment and salute the crowd. He went off today lying in 16th place overall, 2.5 minutes down. He will obviously improve on that slightly, but that, let me hear it for me, he's saying here. I can't believe this one as he comes up to the line, but victory is his and he's going to enjoy it. It's even a slight uphill finish here. That might affect the big sprint, the narrow streets of this beautiful little town. And if anything now, the adrenaline flows, he wins the stage. Emmanuel Sella, first professional victory for him.
Well, I tell you what, I bet he didn't think he was going to survive when he took off with 30 kilometres to go from what at the time was a very large group. Now, moving up here, this is Francisco Villar, who's leading out the sprint for his own teammate, but I have to tell you, his teammate's in the wrong position.
Just about. It's a lamprey sandwich coming up to the line here now, front and back. Galate make, a little bit of a late run, almost a crash there by Villar as well. But it looks like the man with the freshest legs who arrived late, Christian Marini, is taking out the sprint there, and Zampieri, Bo Hamburger, Lobato as they cross the line. But did you see the time on the clock? 30
yeah, but did
seconds.
You see the main field there right here as well? They're not too far away as they come up towards the finish line.
Chase down. They were a minute and a quarter out, minute and a half out, and their leaders, Chase, have gone in at half a minute, and these boys are coming in at about 48 seconds. So it was touch and go in the end.
Alexander Moose there just getting the better of Damiano Cunego, but on a stage fill that wasn't expected to split the race to pieces, there have been some serious time gaps once again. But the day belongs to this young man, Emmanuel Sella, 23 years of age, getting himself his first ever stage victory, and what a way to do it. A lone breakaway of 30 kilometres on what was at the end of it a very difficult stage finale.
Cheers all around there, and look at the average speed, 44 kilometres an hour. Unbelievable for Emmanuel Sella. 153 riders across the line. That's nobody's given up today. There's the result for you at 30 seconds, the remnants of the breakaway at 49 seconds, and again Cunego sprinting it out despite his status as leader of the Tour, which is amazing really. But let this man enjoy that rather large bottle of champagne. He's desisted from drinking any of it. Cunego keeps the Maglia Rosa and keeps it in style, I must say. No change amongst the leaders. They all finish in that chase group. Garzelli stays in there a minute and a quarter down, but he's looking very suspect as he continues to ride towards the finish lines every day. Just look at this, one of the youngest men in the race. I don't think he shaves.